Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call this special Quorum Court meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting is to work on items pertaining to the 2017 budget process. I just want to let each and every one of you know how delighted I am to see so many. I'd like to see everybody, but I'm so delighted to see so many young faces. It's wonderful to have you. So thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedule and coming. I just want all of you to know how much we appreciate you being here. The next thing we have, the prayer in our pledge, is going to be handled by J.P. Robert Dennis. Mr. Dennis, I think you have someone to recognize.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Zowie Armstrong, lovely young lady that's a 4-H'er. I've asked her to do the prayer and the pledge, if you don't mind. Thank you, Zowie.
If you have a hat on, if y'all would please remove it. Dear Lord, thank you for this lovely day. Thank you for the years you have given us. Thank you for our men overseas, for bringing them home safely. Watch over all of them as they are over there fighting for our freedom. And just watch over everybody this evening as they go home, and make sure that they get home safely. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Zoe. Appreciate you. Last thing we have is let's do the roll call. Ms. Carley.
Daniel Balls. Here. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Here. Robert Dennis.
Very warm in here.
Yeah.
Lisa Ecke. Here. Ann Harbison. Here. Sharon Lloyd. Tom Lundstrom. Here. Eva Madison. Here. Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell. Here. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Here. Butch Pond. Here. Bill Ussery. Here.
Quorum present. Next thing you have is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Do I have a motion and a second? All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. I've explained the last 2 or 3 meetings that we now have public comment before we start our business meeting. And I just would like to go ahead and let you know we have a 15-minute interval that we will allow the public to speak. And then each person that is recognized will speak at 3 minutes, no more than 3 minutes each. So the floor is open for public comment. Do I have someone that would like to come forward? Yes, ma'am. If you'll come to the light there and identify yourself, and you speak out for me.
Hello, I am Hillary Drain. I am representing Strictly 4-H Club to let each and every single one of our Quorum Court members know how important it is to our children. They can start at the age of 5 and start earning scholarship money to go to any University of Arkansas program. I'm talking about STEM, science, technology, education, or engineering, mathematics. It's not just about rural. It's also very urban. They just don't know about it because our extension agents are overtaxed and not enough of them. There's more of them, there can be more children involved, and more people can start earning scholarship money. My children are going to be going for veterinary science. Another one's going to be going, hopefully, for something he doesn't know yet. He's dabbling in everything. FFA, on the other hand, does not offer these opportunities. It's all up to the individual schools and their teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come forward, please. Identify yourself.
My name is John Armstrong. I am a concerned parent and grandparent of a young 4-H'er that just led with the pledge. I've got some numbers here I'd like to read to you guys. 2016 Quorum Court Extension Fund designated to the 4-H is $52,500. $30,000 is for one agent, $22,500 is for an assistant. We have 523 4-H members in Washington County. That's $100.38 per investment by the Quorum Court. The Quorum Court Animal Shelter Funds designated is $690,039. There's a projected 2,088 animals intake. That is 1,566 as of October 7th. That's an investment of $330.48 per animal. That number doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The extension request for $224,612, of which $59,500 will be devoted to support 4-H. Using that same enrollment, cost per 4-H member will only be $113.77. The animal shelter budget, $698,889. Same intake, $334 per animal. I got this information from the Washington County Department budget categories, the USDA, and the Washington County Animal Shelter. I feel like we're putting more emphasis on animals than we are kids. There are so many things out there today that kids can get into. 4-H is going to keep them out of it. Just like you all to think about those numbers, realize where we're putting our money in animals. And I understand animals are an important thing. Kids are too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Recognize yourself.
Zoe Armstrong.
Would you please go ahead and be seated? I think it's probably easier to get into the mic if you do. Thank you.
Okay. Judge and quorum court members. Hi, my name is Zoe Armstrong. I'm a 15-year-old fresh sophomore at Fayetteville High School, and this is my 7th year in 4-H. Over my 7 years in 4-H, I have gained and learned so many skills and that have helped me and have continued and will continue with me in my life. Over my years in 4-H, one thing that I have learned the most is public speaking. I am the president of our Greenland 4-H Club, president of our Northwest Arkansas Sharpshooters Club, and the co-reporter of our county council. And at my high school, I am our parliamentarian in our FFA club. I feel without my 4-H experience, I would not have the confidence to stand or sit here, as you can see, and ask for assistance for our Washington County 4-H. The past year has been difficult for our program, operating without a 4-H agent. Other agents at the extension office have had to step in and help devote their time to our 4-H when they have programs that they need to work on. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Zoe. Yes, come forward. Identify yourself, please.
My name is Gene Farr. I'm a farmer from out at Lincoln. I come here tonight to speak about the road situation, although the 4-H, believe me, is very important because 4-H reaches all the kids of all the county, not just the rural kids, but the kids in town also. Because of the shortage of people to help with the 4-H, I understand most of the loss of kids has been in the Fayetteville, Springdale area. And so I would really urge you to really consider giving the 4-H club some help. Rural roads, Washington County, as I understand, is the second largest producing agricultural county in the state of Arkansas. We need our roads. We need to work as a team out there to make the road department better, not be bickering back and forth for partisan purposes. I would just ask you to support the road department. Don't be taking the money away from the roads because we definitely need more roads and stuff out in the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gene. Come forward and identify yourself.
I'm Joe Faddis. I live in a rural area of the county. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and I know that, agree or disagree, that your time is valuable, and we appreciate your service to the county. I was raised on a farm and in a rural area, and have been a lifetime resident of the county except for about 11 years when I worked for a division of Procter & Gamble away from here. I want to compliment our county road department for the job that they've done, not only on an everyday basis, but also during times of floods and ice and snow and things of that nature. I think the back roads in the county, I travel those every week. I've been a farmer for 40 years, but I also operate a rural trash pickup service. And so I travel those back roads every week. And for the most part, I would say they're probably better than some of the other counties because I do travel in 2 other counties. And so I appreciate the road department for what they do. Having said that, though, there's always some room for improvement. There's more that could be done. I'd like to see more roads paved with asphalt. There are roads that are too narrow for big trucks, especially on corners, things of that nature, so they could be improved. And there's never an end to the potholes, no matter how good a job that the grader people do. There's always potholes out there that need to be fixed. County roads are important not only just to me or to farmers, but they're important to mail carriers. They're important to repair people that go out in the county. They're important to commuters that come into the city to work. They're important to school buses and a lot of other people besides just those of us that live out there. And if we want to continue to prosper in our county, then we need to be vigilant in providing good roads and infrastructure for the whole county. There are 2 things that I think are probably most important to rural county residents, and one of them is the road department, and the other is the sheriff's department. I'm not here to talk about the sheriff's department tonight, but I just want to put that plug in while I'm here. We need to support both of them and not just keep the status quo, but provide funds for improvement as we go along. In the future, we're going to need more and more improvements, so we don't need to just take any status quo position and say that's what we're going to do from now on.
Joe, our time is out, but I do
Okay.
appreciate all your comments. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, come forward, you're recognized. Please identify yourself.
My name is Linda Helm. I'm a retired pharmacist with emphasis in geriatrics, and I wanted to comment that the 4-H program is not just for the children, it's not just for the animals. The senior citizens love the program. It gives them an outlet to meet with younger people. It gives the kids something to do with their grandparents and vice versa. It keeps their minds active. It keeps them out in the community. They're not able to get out and walk on these wonderful trails that we have. But they can get in the car by themselves and go to one of these meetings and interact with the kids. It keeps them out of the nursing homes. It's just a wonderful program. Years ago, about 5 years ago, I was having to bring my mother up here to Fayetteville because of declining health and heart failure. I went over to the extension office to see about having her moved her Master Gardener membership from Little Rock up to Fayetteville. And Bernie's office was full of chickens. You could just hear them peeping everywhere, and I thought, she's going to love this. If one of the senior citizens can't get to one of these meetings by themselves, they've got friends that'll pick them up and bring them there. It's just a wonderful, valuable resource for the senior citizens as well. Something that they can do physically and mentally. So I just want you to think about that aspect of it. You'll all be getting older soon, and I've inspected nursing homes at one point in my career, and it's not fun to go into a building that may or may not have odors and people are on walkers and canes. It's much better to keep them active in the community, on fewer medications. You know, they sit at home alone, they get depressed. There's not much on TV that they enjoy because a lot of the shows don't relate to their time span, but they can all relate to the children and the programs.
Thank you very much, ma'am. How much time have we used?
We're on 12 minutes right now, Judge.
Do I have anyone else that would like to speak? Well, again, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here. It's always nice to see a variety of people, old, young, in between, and you've all taken out of your time of day, and I do appreciate what you've done. Thank you again very much. Did I see another hand go up? Come forward, please. You've got about a minute. Identify yourself, please.
Yes, ma'am. I am Carl Holm, and I am a member of the NWA Sharpshooters. And I don't just think that scholarships and all that, that is very important too, but also the volunteer aspect. I remember I was in Springdale Lucky Clovers, and after each meeting, we would at least try to make sure around us, if there was any trash or anything like that, we'd pick it up. And one weekend, we went around and we picked up pieces of trash. And I think that's very important too, because that also saves money of the county having to pay for roadside pick up trash and stuff like that, because multiple clubs like to do that on the weekends to keep our forest and cities clean, so that way we have a better tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think our time is up. Again, thank each and every one of you, and we'll proceed with the meeting. Next thing we have on the agenda is discussion of the millage rates. J.P. Cochran, before we start this, let me just bring one thing up. I've had Attorney Zaga to pull the Roberts rules. This could get very, very lengthy. We've got a very long agenda tonight, and I'd like to get as much of it covered as we can. What I am going to ask, according to Robert's rules, that one member can speak more than twice on the same question the same day. But I'm going to ask each one of you to be recognized. Then we'll take all the people around, we'll recognize those, and then we'll come back to that individual, and everyone can speak twice out of, unless you want to change the rules. And so that's just something that I would like to try to keep at a minimum so that we can proceed and get further into this. I'm sorry?
Put me on the list then.
Thank you,
Okay.
Judge. I didn't mean for this to be lengthy. One of the reasons that I asked to bring it on, I know we've kicked it forward to a couple of meetings because of time constraints in previous meetings. Going forward in our budget process, not knowing what we are going to do with millage, not knowing what we're going to have as a goal for our reserve at the end of the process is like getting in your car and just taking off and driving down the road and hope you get to where you want to be. One of the things that I had prepared for you this evening is a sheet, and everybody's been passed around here. Basically, I've got one little deal. Just fold it over at 2025 and ignore everything out past that. What I've done is created a worksheet here that will show you where we are in our current budget right now, where our beginning reserves right around $7 million, plus or minus $1 or $2. If we don't do anything to build up the reserve going forward, basically we're going to run out of reserve very quickly. In 2020, we will have a census. And at that census, I expect the same thing that happened to us last time, that the overall county population has grown. The rural portion of our county population between the two last censuses was only about 600 people difference. So I expect that we'll stay the same. So our percentage is going to fall. And the change in the revenue for us in the shortfall year beginning in 2021 will be around $1.2 million going forward each year. So you can see in the top line here that if we start in 2017 at $7 million, and if we just add 500,000 to it, just a plan to bring up 500,000 and do that going forward every year, then by the year 2021, when we hit the shortfall year, we'll be at a $9 million reserve. Not terribly a lot, not as much as what we had when we all voted together, or the ones that were here then voted to reduce the reserve, because we were at 19 million, and we felt it was too much. But we're at a point now that we've drawn it down to the point we need to be thinking how we're going to get there. You can see examples going forward if you bring up 750,000, $1 million, where you'll be. But it's not that I want to say that we need to change our millage, raise our millage, do anything with that. I want us to be aware that if we don't do something with our reserve, however we get there, we're setting ourselves up for a real problem years down the road. We need to just kind of inch towards this I would think that the $500,000 to $750,000 range is probably very, very modest. If you were to say that you had to raise millage, a .00002 mil increase based on our current real estate value would be $719,000. The increase to average homeowners is going to be about $2 or $3. It's not even, it's going to be so unnoticeable. They're going to notice more on their property tax increases from the schools than they will what we're doing here. Just that little change right there is less than half of what we reduced a while back, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, would put us in good shape going out to the next census, provided that we don't have any surprises like the $1 million we need to pay the state 2 years ago, or last year. If we don't have any expensive burdens on health insurance, that type of thing. Those things do come up. So, I caution you that going at the least amount might not be the best way, because we always have something come up. We've got a deck we need to reseal every 5 years, $350,000 or so. So I just want us going forward to be very cognizant that we can't sit on 7 million where we're at. We've got to do something to move up. How we get there collectively, we'll look at each individual budget and determine where it's at. But I think that at the end of the process, we need to have our plan long term. Granted, we cannot bind any future court to this, but I think that we realize what's coming at us. We need to be prepared like good scouts and be ready for that, and not find ourselves in a pickle financially and get too low. We're at the point where we accomplished our goal to draw down the reserve to a reasonable level. Got a little lower than I would have liked to have done, but we had the surprise expense last year. We had another surprise expense this year. So we can probably count on that we'll have one next year and the year after. So just wanting to bring this to the awareness of the court, and with a spreadsheet here that kind of allows you to see what the numbers do when they go across year to year to year. The assumption that I made in this is that the increases in sales tax revenue and property tax revenue year to year would be somewhere around $600,000 to $800,000 each year additionally over the prior year. That would be adequate to cover reasonable salary increases for the employees, so we don't get in a situation where we say, oh, we can't do a raise, we'll have to do a bonus. I really don't want to ever go back there. That's just not fair to our employees. Having any other projects in the future right now, the only thing that I know of that we have going forward is going to be a little bit of an increase in road expense based on some new information on where we stand as far as condition of some bridges and that type of thing. So there'll have to be some money spent there, but that also is out of the road budget, not the general fund, which I'm speaking of the reserve here. But I just want to caution that this spreadsheet doesn't take into consideration any extra spending over what we're doing presently, and we'd be able to maintain some salary increases going forward with the normal growth of that. And with that, Judge?
I'll open up the floor.
Thank you.
First to recognize is J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I had asked that this discussion be combined with the discussion about the distribution of the countywide sales tax, because I feel like the discussion is healthy to have it together. And if you all have checked your email in the past couple days, you saw a memo from Mr. Butler about the distribution of the sales tax, and it included a copy of the resolution from 1981. So let me just first say that nobody's talking about raiding anybody's money. We're talking about a sales tax that the voters of this county in 1981 dedicated for general unearmarked revenue purposes. They can be used for any purpose. What I want to do is look at the needs of everyone in the county, every county department, every county employee, and come up with a realistic distribution of how we should use our general purpose tax dollars. This blind adherence to what was done in 1981 because that's the way we've always done it. I think we've learned that the way we've always done it can always be improved. And I don't think that something done 35 years ago is really relevant in 2016. I think we need to look at the current needs of the county, the current needs of the road department, and every other part of the county, and come to a proper decision. So to sort of emphasize the options, I have prepared 2 different resolutions for everybody to look at. Joel, if you could pass those. I think I'll get enough if I pass them around. So what you all are receiving is a 5-page packet. There's option 1, first 2 pages, option 2, the second 2 pages, and then the last page is the actual resolution from 1981, which if you haven't looked at it, it's important to note that it was actually passed before the people voted to give them an idea of how the court might spend the money if they voted for it. And it is very clear that it's approximate, and it accounted for 100% of the dollars coming in. So the options I've given are, I'm just going to go through some of the highlights on option 1. There's a special election held July 28th, 1981, because the state authorized us to pass a countywide sales tax. The voters approved the tax, and we started collecting it in September 1981 and still continue to collect it today. In 1981, it was estimated that the tax would generate $1,260,000 a year. The court gave a breakdown in that resolution that 40% of that money would go to roads and bridges. That would be $504,000. 25% would go to EMS services, $315,000. $252,000 for land acquisition, buildings, and jails. 10% for solid waste and rural fire to the tune of $126,000, and 5% or $63,000 for law enforcement. A lot has changed since 1981, and the county treasurer has predicted for 2017 that that sales tax will generate $6,982,590. We have been following that breakdown from 1981 only with respect to roads and bridges. I don't know what happened to EMS and the rest of the needs that we distributed, but we've only been adhering to it virtually every year since 1981 for roads and bridges. For 2017, the 40% would be projected to be $2,793,000 or $1,036. Our own treasurer has asked us to please resolve this confusion because it's going to come up year to year now as to how we're going to deal with this. To me, if we're going to adhere to what the court did in 1981, we need to adhere to it. I don't know why we would adhere to just part of what the court did and say that it's so important to follow it, but to heck with the rest of it. So if you look at page 2 of option 1, there you go. That's your full sales tax accounted for. Now, some of the funds that were designated don't really exist in that form anymore, so I tried to break it up the way approximately it would. We don't fund ambulance service over $1 million, but what we estimated in 1981 would give them 1.7 next year. But let me talk to you about option 2 and what has changed since 1981. If you take the $504,000 that the court predicted would go to roads and bridges in 1981 and compare that to the almost $2.8 million projected for next year, that's a 554% increase over the projection for 1981. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the inflation rate from 1981 to today has been 165%. So $504,000 in today's dollars would be roughly $1.3 million. So if you think about, we're taking exact inflation numbers, translating 1981 dollars in today, we're overfunding that original purpose by about $1.4 million. In addition, the 1981 sales tax resolution talked about the jail. Well, what's changed since then? We have a dedicated jail sales tax. We have a 0.25% sales tax dedicated for the operation of the jail. It's expected to bring in $9.5 million next year. In addition, the voters approved a half-cent statewide sales tax dedicated for roads and transportation. That's expected to bring in $1.4 million for Washington County next year, and that must be used for roads and transportation. In addition, I did a lot of studying on the population shifts in Washington County. Since 1980, because the census is done on those 10-year segments, since 1980, Washington County's overall population has grown by almost 125,000 people. Only 7,000 of those people have been in the unincorporated parts of the county. So clearly the growth in the county is in the cities. In 1981, 31% of the county's population lived in the unincorporated part of the county. Today, less than 17% does. And thanks to the great work of our assessor, Russell Hill, and his staff member, William Stevenson, last year they went back and found for me how much the unincorporated part of the county has shrunk because of annexation by cities. Cities have annexed since 1980 more than 66,000 acres of the county's part. So that's 66,000 acres that we no longer have to take care of from 1980 till today. Those folks are tremendous shifts in Washington County. And I'm not saying the road department doesn't deserve money. I'm not saying they don't deserve part of this money. What I'm saying is that the sales tax from 1981 was a general purpose sales tax, and we should view it that way and put it to the best and wisest use in any given year. And we should stop this nonsense of blind adherence to one portion of a 1981 35-year-old resolution. It just doesn't make sense. And then finally, I'll say, on the issue of the millage, 83% of the people live in the cities. If we are to talk about imposing a millage increase, most of us, most of our constituents, 83% of them, live in the cities. They're going to pay that tax too. They have higher tax rates by virtue of living in the cities because the cities also assess millages. We need to ask, is it fair to raise taxes for city and rural alike if our primary use for the money is going to be rural? My district is entirely within the city of Fayetteville, and I have to be very mindful of the fact that in the past year, the city of Fayetteville increased its millage one mil to provide for increased law enforcement and fire protection, which will benefit the city of folks. In addition, the voters passed, I think, a 2.7 mil increase to fund Fayetteville's library. So we're not talking about a simple little increase for the folks in Fayetteville. We're talking about adding on to what's already 4.7 mils that they're looking at new. I think we need to be wise about this and assess each budget as it comes forward to us. And we don't need to earmark funds so that anybody comes into this budget cycle with priority. The road department has priority of the dedicated road millage. It has priority with the dedicated sales tax. The jail has priority because the citizens dedicated a sales tax for jail operations. Everything else should be up to other departments to say, we have the need, we have the requirement this year. And when I think about what my priority is in this budget cycle, it's funding that raise that we've already passed for our employees. But I don't think we ought to fund a raise by a millage increase, because what happens in a few years when we want to give another good raise? Are we going to raise the millage again? We're going to have to figure out a way to make county government work without just continually raising taxes. So I'm not moving to pass any of these. This is more for an example, because I don't think it's wise to distribute 100% of this sales tax the way they did in 1981, just like I don't think it's wise to distribute 40% of it in 1981. But I want this court to think long and hard about what has changed in 35 years and whether blind adherence to something that long ago is what's best for the county, the citizens, and the county employees. Thanks, Judge.
J.P. Harbison.
I completely disagree with Ms. Sue Madison on her projections. Eva Madison, excuse me. Fayetteville and Springdale get 80% of the 1 cent sales tax. We get 18%. 18% of that, then 40% of that goes into roads. Practically all the people that live in the cities use the county roads as arteries to get to places. We are second in agriculture in this state. We have the opportunity to take this money and to really build some really good roads. We have over 20 bridges that need to be replaced right now, not tomorrow, but now. Those 25 bridges have been designated by the state as needing repairs and replacements. We need this money for the rural area. Saying that the city does not get their share is false, because they do get their share. Even on the millage, for instance, right now on the 1.1 mills, Fayetteville gets $498,052. Springdale gets $330,000, not $922,000. So to say that the city people are not getting their fair share is not correct, because that money is distributed according to population. So we are getting a smaller percentage, 18%, and then 40% of that 18% is going into roads. We need, yes, we are going to have revenue for the general fund, but we reduced millage 0.5 of a mil when maybe it should have only been reduced 0.25. But we are at a crossroads, and yes, I said we don't raid the road fund, because that's exactly what you're doing. Thank you.
J.P. Pond.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Ms. Harbison's a hard act to follow. Completely agree with what she had to say. I continue to be taken aback when people around this horseshoe are so critical of quorum courts in the past. I want to make one point about this 25% of that sales tax going to ambulance service, and how come we don't go by that anymore? Well, I'm not so sure that we don't, because of mutual assistance agreements in emergency services. An ambulance does not run to the rural area to an address or a location without also dispatch calling volunteer fire department personnel, first responders, and they call them first responders for a particular reason. They're the ones that get there first. Not necessarily every time, because sometimes that dispatcher will say stage for law enforcement. In that case, the other part of the mutual agreement is there will be a deputy come to the scene, and then they'll call back and say, okay, first responders, and then hopefully the ambulance is there by that time too. All these people working together is part of that emergency service that's all necessary for us to have adequate ambulance service. Do we leave these folks out? Do we say, well, they shouldn't get any part of that 25%? The rural fire departments or the sheriff's office, the fire department, all that works together. Some of the folks on this court might not know how that works or have never seen it work. But I'm gonna uphold and compliment what this court has done through the years, doing the best they possibly can to adhere to this projection or what was made out by resolution instead of ordinance for the courts to comply with, how this 1 cent sales tax should be distributed. Now, what are you gonna do if in fact you say it's ridiculous, the roads should not be getting this money, they're getting temporary monies elsewhere? What do you do when you come back later and you've used this money for other things? You're gonna come to the voters again and say, well, we need another 1/4 cent. The roads are falling apart, and it's directly affecting the small businesses in the towns and cities. What do you do then? Well, I guess the people that voted for this 1 cent, 1%, maybe they forgot what they voted for. Well, I'm one of them that hasn't. I'm still living. I remember why we voted. We saw the need for it. We need to continue to uphold what the voters, what they voted for. I'm not going to do it any other way otherwise. That doesn't mean when we come down to the final vote on the final part of the budget that I'm going to vote no. But I want you to make sure that you know why, and it's going to go down on record that I'll be voting no to turn my back on the will of the voters of Washington County. Many of them, including myself, still living, that voted for that saw then the need for it, and all of them don't live in the rural areas. They're people living in town that know the value of those roads coming into the towns. I can't go out there and look, not just only my constituents, but the people of Washington County. I cannot go out there and look them in the face and say, well, yeah, I think y'all's roads are good enough. You don't need this money. Thank you, ma'am.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Members, every 2 years, this county gets a new quorum court. One quorum court doesn't tell another quorum court what to do. We are different every 2 years, and we were elected to use our best judgment with guidance from the citizens about what the county needs. This formula is what the quorum court back in '81 thought would be best for getting the tax passed for the benefits of the citizens. Now, I was on the court 10 years later in '91, and I remember it was hotly debated over and over again what it really meant in '81 about this 25% for ambulance. Did it mean we would always give 25%, or did it mean we would give $315,000, which was less than 25%? And they decided we didn't really mean 25%, we meant 315. So right away there started to be deviation from this original presentation to the voters that in the ordinance it says was approximately. And it is resolution, and one quorum court doesn't bind a future quorum court. I think it's in the best interest of the citizens of the county that this quorum court sitting here today make the decision about how this money is best spent for the people of Washington County. And let's remember that there are probably a greater percentage of rural people that use the city streets than the other way around. There are some rural people that call me out of concern wanting to be sure their road never gets paved. I tell them that's not my decision. Some people move to the country so it would look like the country. But it is up to this quorum court how this money is spent, because we are not the quorum court that was here in 1981. Thank you.
J.P. Patterson.
Well, I've had quite a little bit of experience with several of these items in this list here, more than I'd like to admit, but anyway. The The rural fire in 2008 made it from Nob Hill to my house, which is 3 miles in 4.5 minutes. That's unheard of for a rural fire department. And much more recent than that, the ambulance service was there between 7 and 8 minutes a few weeks ago. We have good service. There's two things we need to consider, actually, about three, actually. When I came on the court, and we're not talking about patrol particularly, but anyway, two counties in the middle of the night were on patrol in Washington County. Now there's 6. I worked on the ambulance service to a limited degree for about 8 years, and I think it's as good as it can get. The roads is the one that is the kicker. When I come on the court, we had 1,280 miles of roads we took care of. Now we're running about 990. So that's kind of a good thing for us. But when that happens, we lose our good roads because they're right up to the city. Now I have all these housing additions in the district I represent, hardly any town. And when they take to the bridge or wherever that ends up, and everything those roads are the secondary roads become the primary roads getting into the cities. Then we'll take the ones that are the worst and move them up. And then they annex again, and then you start over the same process. So whatever we do, we need to be careful, because the fire and ambulance is really important. It really is. And we need to think this through. This is not something I can sit down and be all convinced how it's going to work in 5 minutes, because it's pretty complex. But anyway, just consider that we have some of the best around in the country, if not the best. Thank you.
J.P. Lundstrom.
I may be wrong. I don't want to put words in Justice Madison's mouth, but the way I understand her proposal is that she's not talking about taking money away from anybody. We've got $621,000 proposed in the ambulance budget for 2017 now, which is quite a bit more than's in that other document. Point is just putting the money in the general fund and the quorum court do what they're elected to do and decide who gets that money. I don't know if I'm misjudging your point of view or not, but that's what we're supposed to do. If the road department needs more money, give them more money. If the ambulance service needs more money and it's there, give them more money. But you can only give what money you have. You can't give money to any departments that you hope you have. So you take this money, put it in the general fund, quorum court does what they're elected to do and decides where that money needs to go. There's already a road millage that they get. There's already the sales tax for the jail that they get. It's falling short now of supporting the jail. Probably should have been passed, a 1/2-cent tax when they passed it originally. Then they would be in wonderful shape yet today. But it's getting harder and harder I remember when we had a 1-cent sales tax. Anybody else in here remember that?
Just one.
1 cent. Now we've got 10, and in some places almost 11. We're one of the highest tax states in the United States, both state taxes and local taxes. So we need to be careful. It's getting harder and harder to go out and ask people to add another 1 or 2 cents to their sales tax. It's getting harder and harder to go out and ask them to add more money to their property tax. My family owns some commercial property and what have you. What you end up doing, you're actually, whether you realize it or not, basically renting your property from the government. Because you don't pay those taxes, they're going to come get the property. I don't like that personally, but we do need the taxes to support our society. But it's been my experience in government that everybody always wants more. When I started the Elm Springs Police Department, when I was mayor out there, we had some of the best cars in Washington County, but within a year they weren't good enough. My policemen needed better cars. They needed AR-15s. They needed this, that, and another. It just never ends. And it's not all bad, but there's only a limited amount of money available to do all this with. And this is what we have to understand. I think that's what Justice Madison is talking about. The people voted the tax in, put the tax in the general fund where it belongs, and decide where the quorum court needs it to go. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zaga here needs to be recognized. Turn your mic on, Steve.
Yes. I just wanted to remind y'all that whatever, and I'm speaking specifically to the millage now, you've got to do something before the November regular meeting for next year's millage. That's all I have to say. You're required by law to set your millage in that ordinance.
I'd also like to make you aware, and I think all of you are aware of it. You are allowed to have a total of 3 mills for the road. You're allowed to have 5 mills for general. In our county, we've been very, very thrifty. We have 1.1 mills for the road. We have 3.9 mills for general. And I know you folks, a lot of you are very irritated at the state, but I can assure you, when I go to the state trying to get money for Northwest Arkansas, they say, why should we do or give you anything because you don't carry your own loads? That's just a point I wanted to make because I think it's important. Because if you know, most counties, or even all of our sister counties, I hate to speak out of turn, but I think most of them have their road mills up to 3, and I'm not sure what their general is, but it's much lower than ours. So we get a lot of flack over this. Is it 5? Okay, higher. Well, they can't have it 3 and 5, so yeah. But I just wanted you to be aware that we don't have the full millage on our people because we've been very thrifty. I'm sorry. So I have recognized all the JPs. Where do we stand from here?
Judge, unless
Yeah, I'm sorry.
everybody
go
gets
ahead.
one turn and then everybody gets
Yeah,
their second
no,
turn.
okay.
And I don't think J.B. Maxwell's.
J.B. Maxwell, I'm going to get there. Just give me a chance.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I don't want to waste my chance. So, a couple of things here. One is just some numbers that I've looked up just for everybody's context. But when it comes to property taxes, the median property tax in Arkansas, considering all counties, some are more rural than others, obviously, but it's $532. The median tax in Washington County is $919, and we are in contention for first, second, or third, depending on how things go from one year to the next. And there's not a lot of difference between Benton County, Pulaski County, and Washington County. Those are the top 3. So when it comes to median property taxes, we're certainly not at the bottom of the barrel. When it comes to Arkansas in general, if you look at the compilation of sales tax, property taxes, everything combined, Arkansas is the number 2 highest tax rate in the nation, second only to Tennessee by a little bit, and way ahead of Louisiana, which is 3rd. So I do think we need to consider a couple things. One is I take very seriously the decision about levying more property taxes on anybody, any taxes of any sort. Just because I think about things, we have all these wonderful 4-H'ers, and we've heard the last couple of meetings from several people from the home extension, the county extension office, et cetera. And we've heard a lot about our agricultural production. It occurs to me that everybody involved in agriculture is going to pay the increased millage. Not everybody involved in commerce someplace, unless they own or rent some property, they're not going to be part of that extra millage, at least the paying part of that. If you're involved in agriculture, more than likely you're going to incur a cost because agriculture requires property and barns and tractors and equipment. So I'm very careful for my constituents to take on the role of giving them a higher tax burden. What I do like about it, I know several things have been mentioned about city versus county, and I recently got an education. I bought something that cost $1 in the city of Fayetteville, and it was food and beverage, and my tax was 11.75%. I didn't realize it was that high. I knew it was higher for food and beverage, but I did not realize it was that high. What I like about that is that the citizens of Fayetteville decided that they wanted to pay that much on several fronts, not all of it, but they voted just most recently, as was referred earlier, to an additional 2.7 mills to fund a library. But that was their decision. Sometimes I think we approach this as, A, if we need more money, we should just ask for more. I'm not sure that's always accurate. Number 2, that if we need more money, that it should be in the form of a property tax, and only select a certain group of people, the people who are, some might say those are the wealthy people or they wouldn't be able to own property. I would say that I know a lot of folks that have just borrowed a lot of money and are invested in chicken houses or farms or businesses or whatever, and it may look like they have a lot, but they're paying a lot, and they're paying a lot of taxes to keep that and to run a business and to work that. And I think we have to be very careful and make sure that we make accurate assessments about how quote-unquote wealthy or how rich these people are just because they have access or are using buildings and property. And assessing a tax against that is essentially putting a burden on people who are running small businesses and farms, et cetera. So that concerns me a lot. I think we should, I looked at just what, actually used Justice Madison's numbers here that she's referenced in these options, and I looked at what 1/8 of a cent sales tax brings in, and according to these numbers, about $872,000 a year. 1/16 of a sales tax obviously would bring in $436,000. So if the citizens of Washington County chose to pay extra sales tax, like the citizens of Fayetteville just recently got to make that decision, if they chose to do that, then the will of the people, if they want to spend more money and get more services, I have no problem with that. But I have a lot of caution about levying additional monies on people who are already paying the second highest state sales tax and the second highest median property taxes. Thank you, Judge.
J.P. Pond. I guess we're on our second. I just want to
Yes.
make sure. Okay,
Yes,
hang on
ma'am.
just a moment.
This is my second time around.
Okay, hang on. Do
I'll-
I have anyone else that has not spoke that would like to speak? Okay, you're recognized, J.P. Pond.
I'd just like to point out, remind the people during this discussion on this, the road millage that was brought up. Washington County roads don't receive a great big chunk of that road millage inside and this could be by rights. I'm not complaining. People just need to know. Inside the city of Fayetteville, the property tax there, that road millage, 80% of that goes to the city of Fayetteville. Okay. Inside the city of Springdale, 80% of that goes to the city of Springdale. The smaller towns receive half of that millage, and the other half goes to the counties, which, well, maybe seems like a good deal for the rural people. I don't know, but you need to know that road millage does not just go to the county roads, and also I may be sticking my neck way out on this, but I kind of believe the rural people, even though they own a lot of agri-land, they have confined animal facilities. I had some when they were active. My facilities were actively in use. There was considerable amount more dollars that I had to pay in property tax. But anytime, if that's what it took to just maintain the roads to the quality they are now, just to keep what we have, I'd be willing to put that half a mil back in place, just if that's what we need to keep what we have, let alone the improvements that are badly needed on some of the roads. Some of the roads, even over there on the west side of the county, have to be maintained. Thank you.
J.P. Ecke. I'm sorry, just a moment. No, I'm going to go ahead and recognize her. Go ahead, J.P. Ecke. You're recognized.
okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I think this is a very healthy discussion. It can be heated, yes, because it's emotional. When you hit our pocketbooks, everybody gets a little emotional. But in thinking about it, and I've thought about this quite a bit, listening to J.P. Maxwell and J.P. Dennis talking about the mills versus the sales tax. I don't like a sales tax because it hurts what I call lower income people. I met Steve Forbes, and he talks about a flat tax because a flat tax is fair to everybody. Everybody pays a flat tax. You pay the same. If we were to do a sales tax, however minute the increase would be, everybody would end up sharing the burden of the tax and contributing to the taxes for the county. the millage seems to me is lopsided, because if you are a small business owner, you do get hit. If you are an independent farmer, you do get hit, and everything else. And I get my tax bill for a business, and I'm going, you're kidding, I only have 9 employees, how much more do y'all want? But it's a lot when you have to pay $1,500. You're going, my goodness. But a sales tax, it's my choice. If I want to go out and I want to buy that butter, I'm going to pay the sales tax on it. If I want to buy that hamburger, I'm going to pay the sales tax. If I can't afford the hamburger, I won't buy it. It's my decision. But this other one, the millage, seems to me that we're imposing on it, where a sales tax is more a choice in consumption. I still would like to think about it a little bit more. I never thought that I would be swayed by such a persuasive person, but it's worth considering. I think we need to look at all of our options, and I think these options that Justice Madison has put forth, and Justice Maxwell, as well as what J.P. Harbison is saying, and I understand that. I'm the one who said, yes, the roads, county roads are the arteries to the cities, and I'm a big supporter of the roads department. I think the two, Charles Ward and Brad Phillips, are doing a great job, and I support them. But I think we need to continue having this discussion, and if our citizens would like input on this discussion, let us know. We're listening, and we will try to do what is right for this county. Thank you, Madam Judge.
J.P. Harbison, J.P. Usry has asked to be recognized. J.P. Usry.
Thank you very much. I would just like to point out that the millage really affects a few people. Part of the reason where we're at today is because Washington County has grown dramatically, but many of the people coming in are living in apartments. We don't get the same impact financially from somebody living in an apartment that we do that somebody that lives in a single-family dwelling. And so we've got to be careful when we look at this that we're not, because it should be fair to everybody in the county. And I'm not really sure that a millage right now would establish what we're trying to do here. It's just for consideration. Thank you very much.
J.P. Harbison.
Well, I'm not sure when I want to start here, but I want to address the road issue first. I think Joe Patterson said we had 990 miles of county road, but that does not include residential drives. We have many, many, many miles of residential drives that the county grades twice a year. We do not maintain these roads. We only grade them. At some point, we need, when you have 15 and 20 houses on these roads need to be brought up to standards and turned over to the county to maintain. That's a huge amount of money, but these people do pay taxes also. I mean, I hear this all the time. So to say that our roads are decreasing is not quite right. Because of all of these residential drives that we have out there. And the other thing I wanted to address is that this court doesn't have anything to do with sales tax. We do not increase or decrease sales tax. That's left up to the people. We do have control over the millage. We reduced the millage in this county 0.5 of a mil, and it took us 5 years to make up and get back to the level of funding we had after that 0.5 of a mil and after the census. I would, that's not just quite right to say the 0.5, but because of the money, we went from 22% to 18% on the sales tax because of population shifts. This thing on populations, because the populations in the cities are greater, they're getting more money. people saying, oh, we're not getting as much money. They are. We need to take care of our rural roads. Taking that 40% out of the rural roads and putting it into general is not fair to the rural people in this county. We have many, many, many needs. And it's not fair to the incoming county judge to do this, whoever that county judge is going to be, because you're taking that money out, and then this county judge, if he wants to come back and really do an excellent road program and expand, then he has to come to this court. And we know that this court, the history of this court in the last 2 years, when people come in and ask for money back, this court has been very harsh on them, very harsh, to the point that most county employees do not want to come in and ask for additional money. They do not like being cross-examined like common criminals, and that has happened.
Let's.
I'm on point. I am on point in that if the money
J.P.
goes.
Harbison, we have to stop because that is point of
What?
order. I've been called for a point of order.
I'm sure by Miss Eva Madison.
No, that's out of line. We can't do that. So if you have something else that you need to discuss with the roads, then.
I do.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. Roads are important. Let me emphasize, I don't think anyone on this horseshoe has considered the number of residential drives we have out there. And it is important that we somehow bring these up to standard. Having 15 and 20 houses on residential drives is not good. You have to, some of these drives are almost impassable. You can't get a fire truck down them, you can't get an ambulance down them without damaging the vehicles. This is happening in my district. It happened just recently when an ambulance had to go to a home that cares for foster children and had some kids that are handicapped, and one of them went into a seizure. So, you know, the ambulance had to go down there, and the road was so rough that it did damage the vehicle. So, people in the county, you're going to have to step up. The city people are getting their money because of the percentage increase. So, county people, you're going to have to step up and let these people, especially if there's someone in your area that's represents a rural area that's not voting for your interest. Thank you.
Okay, now, J.P. Cochran, I'm going to go ahead and recognize you, even though you spoke at the very beginning, and then J.P. Madison's next. So go ahead, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. I'll keep it very, very short. Just the history, so the folks that are here in our audience and at home looking at this, in the year 2000, we were at 5 mills, maximum allowed. 2008, we went to 4.4. 2011, I was one of them that voted to take it to 3.9. I want to just say that we have shown that we can reduce taxes for our constituents. We have continued to provide the services at a level that's acceptable to the county through an enormous growth period. That's over 16, 17 years. My hat's off to the management and elected officials here in Washington County for being able to do everything they've done with essentially less percentage of money. The budget total is higher, but less percentage of the public's money, which is also contributing to our growth. So I'm not in favor of raising taxes. If that's what we need to do, then that's what we need to do as a court. But I think that collectively, with our eyes on this, to know where we need to be a few years down the road and what we need to do for the current year's upcoming budget, I think we can do a great job. And I just want to say I'm glad to be part of this body and be able to help do the right thing for our citizens of Washington County, the right thing for our employees in Washington County. Thank you, Judge.
I want to make just a little short statement here. I don't like the sound of raising taxes. It's going to be reinstating the taxes that you had already cut.
May I?
Yes, go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, syntax, raising it from where it is at this point.
Okay.
This is true. But we have been able to draw down the millage draw down the reserve from a very high number in 2011 when we did that. We were looking at a way to, how do you give the money back? And there is no way because there's so many sources of income. Reducing the property tax millage was the way we chose to do it. We've gotten it down to a manageable level, maybe a little dangerous in the sense we might be dangerously low. Now I'm concerned about our next census, and that's why I brought up the topic this evening to have everybody be aware that we need to be kind of eye on the future for that. Thank you again, Judge.
J.P. Madison.
I have one comment. Maybe our road department is in need of so many more funds because they're grading private driveways. Maybe we need to reconsider whether residential driveways are the best use of our resources. But I think we've all had a chance to speak. There's no question to call because there's no motion on the floor, but I will make a motion that we close debate on this issue and move on in our agenda.
Second.
It takes a 2/3 vote,
I have
Judge,
a
and it's
motion and
not
a
debatable.
second to close debate. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And I want to correct something. We do not grade private drives. We grade residential drives, and we only do them twice a year. We only do them twice a year if the people request it, and that is part of that's always been that way. But we do not grade private drives. Okay, so the debate has closed.
Yes, ma'am.
And but again, I would like everyone to be aware, we have to do something on the millage by the Quorum Court meeting in November. So I just want to make you aware of that.
Mr. Zaga, my understanding was we had to do it in November. We couldn't do it in October.
Well, that's correct. You
Okay.
have to put it, you have to pass the ordinance, the ordinance that you pass all the local millages, school boards, cities.
Yeah.
Has to be done by statute in the November regular Quorum Court meeting.
Okay.
So the county millage has to be in that ordinance.
Okay,
That's all
'cause
I'm saying.
I'd heard the by November, and it was confusing me, like we were being encouraged to do something now.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying you've got to make a decision what the 2017 millage is going to be, essentially in time for it to be written into the ordinance for the November Quorum Court meeting.
Hang on just a moment. Karen, you're recognized.
Steve actually said it. I just need, the Quorum Court has often made a motion telling me what to put in the ordinance, just like the cities tell me what to put in their ordinance. So it's better to do it before they do the ordinance up, especially if you want something different.
And help me, correct me if I'm wrong, this ordinance will need to be the third Thursday night of November.
Right.
Okay.
Then
I
that
just
would
wanna
go
make
out in
sure
the
that's
packet the
understood.
week before.
Okay. Okay, we are ready to move on to the next item on the agenda, and we will start reviewing our 2017 budgets, buildings and grounds. Mr. Ron Wood. If you'll come forward, please. You don't have to recognize yourself. We know who you are. Ron, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'll try to make this as quick and short as possible. We did the handout, or the mail out, I guess, kind of explaining the amounts we have added to our budget this year, and basically all it is some of the things that we talked about in Public Works and that type of thing, the parking deck, the old courthouse, and the water ceiling of the jail. Pretty much on talking on our general budget, we moved a few things around. Like if some of our lines were a little bit over, we felt like we had some extra money in there. We moved it over into some of the lines that were short last year and kind of tried to even it out so everything worked. But the total amount of the budget, other than these additions, are basically the same as we had last year. The parking deck, I put that in there, and I realized that it's possible that these things may not all go. I know it's an awful lot of money, but it's just, it's some things that I felt like that we have to do at some point in time. The parking deck's sealing it. I got the quotes on it. Of course, it'll go to bid. I did that so we can have an idea of kind of what we're looking at for that amount. The quote that we got was $305,000 to seal the parking deck here at the courthouse. And that's added into, half of that is into, we didn't do it as capital like most of the time in the past. Those larger items like that we put in capital items, but actually this is repairs and maintenance. So that's the reason that it's in the budget like it is this time. It's half of it is into line item 2020, and that's because of the material, and then the cost of labor goes into line 3009 for the total cost of the parking deck. And then the other one was the historical courthouse, and they're all in the same line items. It was about $65,000, and half of that is into 2021, and half of it is into 3009. So that's what makes those lines so much larger.
Ron, before we start discussing your budget, I would like for you to tell them what has happened with our cooler today.
Really?
Yep, lay her on them.
We haven't had a good weekend.
No, we haven't.
At the health department, we've kind of been, I guess, babying our well, gone brain dead now. It's our
that cooler.
The cooler. And it's gone. We're looking at, and I guess I was hoping to have some numbers. They were going to try to get it to me today, and they didn't get it. Somewhere in the neighborhood of probably $40,000 to $60,000 to replace that thing, and it's gone. So
And that was purchased in 1960.
It was put in the building when it was new, in 96.
96, okay. I just wanted to throw that in because, you know, we're always making the point, we don't know what we're going to have to put in your budget, and that's so true because we never know. So, okay, the floor is opened up for Ron to ask him any questions that, yes, dear. Keeps the building air in the, yeah, well, no, not a, it's,
no. It actually, what it does, it's a chiller, not a chiller.
Because a cooler for me, I'm going,
No. It's not
No.
It takes the heat out of the air conditioning. Like we got water source, HVAC, and what it does is move the water through it, and it cools down the water to resend it back.
and it heats the water for the winter time.
So basically what it means is our air conditioning is gone without it.
Okay.
It's a chiller is what it
Is there any, yes, J.P. Cochran?
You didn't mention a number on sealing the jail.
Okay, I was holding that for the jail budget.
Okay, that's in a separate budget.
But
All right,
that's okay.
that
I
sounds
mean, I
good.
can give it to you.
Yeah,
It's in a different budget.
It looks good. I guess my question for you is on the current year budget. You don't have that money, do you?
Well, I haven't had time to really look yet. We've got some monies that we had set aside for some other stuff, and we may be able to move some of that around. And I just really haven't had time.
Okay.
We're getting very close.
I knew you were
pulling
close
out of
because we've
other lines to bring it down, and I can't, because I really don't know how much it's gonna cost yet.
That's
either.
true. I think the last one we did about 4 years ago was around 65,000, wasn't it?
Well, this one, I think, was the last one we did on this
Was it?
building here, and it
Was
was
it?
about 85.
Okay,
but-
well, then I'm thinking of something else then.
Yeah, this one
Okay.
is a lot larger, and it has
Right.
to go up on top of this building, where this
Right.
one is not on top of the building, so
Right,
it's.
well, I know that
considerably less.
we've kept your budget really tight, and we've come in and brought you some funds to do some
Yeah.
projects, some roofing and some
Yeah.
flooring and.
Yeah, I
metal
can't say that I
detector.
won't be back, but
Right.
hopefully I won't come back until I've got some numbers.
Well,
And right now,
I guess
just
my
don't know.
question is, if you you have the numbers to move around, but then it hamstrings you going into the rest of the year, so. So there's no urgent need that we need to do an infusion, but we're probably going to be doing something
There's a
here
good
soon.
possibility.
Okay, okay, well, that's what I wanted to do. Overall, I think your budget looks pretty good. I know that we have some big items in here, 370,000 that we, one time every 5 years or thereabouts, something like that, so, I think that, everything looks in order, and I would move to pass your budget.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on Ron's budget? Would you call the roll, Carly? Ron, I'm sorry.
Are we doing both budgets, or,
Let's take one at a time.
I've got two. Okay.
Which other one do you have here, Ron?
I've got a 127 and a 108.
And
Okay,
Would you
108 is,
guys-
108 is the general, that's all the county other than the jail.
Okay,
Right.
I'm off.
let's do the roll
You're
call
talking
then.
about the
Thank you,
park?
Ron.
That's why I was.
Judge,
Okay.
I would make sure, may I
Okay.
inquire parliamentarily?
Yes.
That's your intent, that's
Yes.
the budget you intended?
Yeah, pass
everybody
the
to vote on, And
108.
the second's intent.
No,
108.
108, because it includes the parking deck courthouse
Okay.
monies,
I'm
that's
sorry,
what we're
Judge.
talking.
Okay,
what I
that's fine.
And that was on page 526 of our hymnal here. Okay, thank you, yes.
So do we all understand what we're voting on? Okay, call the roll, Carly.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Ann Harbison. Yes. Sharon Lloyd. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Yes. Sue Madison. Yes. Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry. Yes. Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Okay, one out of the way, one to
Okay.
go. You're ready to recognize to
Okay,
do
this-
the jail.
The next one is easy, it's not as much money, or not so much money.
That'll be,
It's the same thing, all this extra money is put in the budget the same way. Our budget numbers are basically the same thing. We took out some money out of the budget, actually. We reduced it somewhat because of our lighting projects that we did last year that are finished. And we took the money out of those lines.
I don't have that
Karen, we
page.
seem to have some confusion here. We don't, since everybody doesn't seem to have their pages the way it should be.
I think it's 5142. It says 546, but I think it's 142.
140?
140? Oh, yeah, you're right, sorry.
Are we good then?
140.
5140 or 140? How do you know?
Are we good? Okay, go ahead. Ron, I'm sorry.
Okay. We have to, a lot of painting and sealing, well, mostly sealing on our jail facility. It's been almost 6 years since we did it, and it's kind of like the parking deck. We want to try to do that every 5 years to keep it sealed. And we did the same thing on this budget as we did the other. What I said there a minute ago, we decreased some out of this budget, but we're adding in the 149,000. That's for the painting and the ceiling, and so that raises this budget about $74,500 from last year's numbers.
Okay. J.P. Lundstrom.
I was looking at line 3060. Just curious to why we've got $210,000 both years in a row.
3060.
Yeah. Is that utility cost or electrical work? It
That's
says utilities.
That's utilities. That's electricity.
Well, I just noticed it went from 76,000 to 210,000.
No, that's half the year expenditure.
Oh, is that the half a year?
yeah.
Oh,
That's
okay.
part of the year.
That explains my question, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay. JP Esri.
I'd just like to tell you how much I appreciate you. Obviously, the difference in this is not the 149,000. And I appreciate very much you looking and seeing where you could trim it down make it as bearable as possible. Thank you for doing that.
Okay. Okay, JP Cochran.
Yes, move to pass Department 0127 budget.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carly, call the roll.
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Ann Harbison. Yes. Sharon Lloyd. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Yes. Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell. Yes. Gary McHenry. Yes. Joe Patterson. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Bill Ussery. Yes. Daniel Balls. Yes. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Yes. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
You can go home, cook supper.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron. Is everyone okay, or do we need to take a break? Okay, no break? Okay. Okay, okay, 5 minutes. Sorry to have to call you back. Everyone was enjoying their visit, but the next thing we have on the agenda is general services. Miss Ashley? You're recognized.
Okay. I am coming because I'm requesting for a permanent part-time employee for our inventory process that we started this year. I came before y'all earlier this year and asked to transfer money from our comptroller's department to the general services for part-time salaries we weren't using. And so now I'm coming to ask if we can approve a permanent part-time position. And I can kind of give you a little information of currently, we have 40 departments that we're inventorying through Washington County. Out of the 40 departments, we've already completed 26, but out of the 26, our current part-time employee has done 12 of those departments with just since he's been here since August. So it's given that we need help, and he's doing a great job. So with the justifications, I included cost for the part-time employee position, and the total cost that would be budgeted is $12,763, and this is the only increase you're seeing in the general services budget. But of that $12,763, $4,859 of that is what you typically budget for the comptroller's department for a part-time employee. So I'm only asking for new budget money of $7,904.
JP Madison.
So I had received some feedback from some county offices that we're making them go out and measure all the desks and measure every chair and provide, like, well, is it a big chair or a little chair? And I thought,
I'm not sure about.
I cannot understand how this would be necessary information to have people measuring desks. And I assume it's part of this process.
Yes, yes. And we enjoy it just as much as the departments enjoy it. But basically, what we have to do is we need to start recording all of this information, so then if we are ever in a disaster, we can recover those items, and the insurance company can actually replace what the cost value is on what we have. We do have a blanket policy, but from what I understand from our current risk manager is that if we had lost, the courthouse in some kind of disaster, we would not be able to, with our policy, actually receive everything back that we have. And so that's kind of why we started this inventory. And Steve can actually explain also there's I think an actual code or something that we're following for inventory purposes.
Is it something special for us? Because I hope I don't have to get a measuring tape out at my house
No,
to get insurance.
And that's kind of what we had actually done is that we emailed the departments ahead of time saying, hey, by chance, if you can, please give us this information. However, we understand you're busy. If you don't if something is missed, it's not a problem because we have to go no matter what. Luckily, we've had a great return from departments. They've been wonderful. And so now our part-time employee is going through those departments, putting a sticker on everything, logging it into our computer. And this is also going to help with any theft or anything in the future that could happen that you hope will never happen. But we're covering all grounds, and it's a lot of work. And our purchasing department is only 2 employees, and so it's a big job, especially for just 2 employees that are already overwhelmed with their current work they have.
Okay, thanks.
JP Cochran.
The process of getting this is huge to begin with. Looking down the road, what do you expect to continue to have this level of part-time support?
I think so. I mean, that's definitely something we're going to have to reevaluate. Currently, how I look at it right now is this is something that needs to be done by the end of the year because now we're starting a new year, which will also need updated inventory. So as soon as we finish this, we're jumping right back into it. It won't be as detailed because we'll already have a lot logged, but we're still going to have to go through and check the list off.
Right, so the process for next year's inventory is to basically go down a checklist instead of measuring desks.
Well, but if there's new equipment, electronics and all of that, we have to log that as well. So there could be a possibility.
Wouldn't it be wise to go ahead and log that at the time it was received and placed in the department?
That would be a great idea.
I think
Absolutely.
that's exactly how you should do it because that's the way we do it.
Right.
If it gets placed, it's already inventoried and tagged, and then you have it on your list. And when you have to do your inventory periodically, you know exactly where it is. And if it moves to another location, then you make those notations as it happens.
Right, and we currently do that, but you also got to keep in mind, we have several elected officials, department heads that are trying to work together as
Right.
one, and it can be very difficult.
And they need to work
things
together
slip.
with you. You need to explain it to them, Lucy.
And we are, and they're doing a great job with
Well,
helping.
that's good that you have cooperation
But
on
everything
that.
slips.
That's good. Well, I will move to pass 0118 General Services Budget.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Carla, call the roll.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd, Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joel Maxwell. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. The next thing on the agenda is Environmental Affairs. Michelle Viney.
Good evening. You were provided from my department via email last week a justification from me that just sort of went line by line over the increases that I have proposed in my budget. I'm not asking for a capital request this year. I'm simply, I have increased a few line items though, and so I wanted to give you a clear explanation of each of those line items. Is there anything particular that you would like to know about those line items? The page number. I'm not sure if I know the page number from your 596. Okay, no problem.
5206 is the justification, if that's what you guys are talking about.
Pardon?
5206. 5206.
5206 is the justification number. Which line item? There's a list of them there. It starts with 2002, small equipment. It's in a letter addressed to each of you. And then there's also a detail sheet for a couple of the line items. I provided a detail sheet for each of the increases over $500.
Any questions?
If you would, pardon?
Go ahead. I've just waiting to see if they've had any questions so far.
If you would allow me to, I would go ahead and jump to 2004, the medicine and drugs.
Yes, go ahead.
The reason that I'd like to point this particular line item out is it's a $1,000 increase in our budget. It's something that was not budgeted in previous years, and so it is a little bit unique. We, in the past, have purchased first aid kits out of our general supplies money. And I wanted to break that out separately for tracking purposes to be a little bit more accurately representing where that expenditure is coming from. And I wanted to look into a subscription service where this company, RCK Enterprises, could come to us and install these first aid kits and do inventory on them quarterly. There are some other departments that use this service where we would not be the only one, but this would prevent us from having kits that are outdated with expired stuff in it. And I'm particularly concerned about having one of these installed out in our household hazardous waste building because we have a high volume of traffic in that building. And I think having first aid, materials out there would be very important in that building. So it would be a couple of $100s. Let's see. The installation of the first kit would be around $295, $300, somewhere around there, to install the kit. And it's going to be like a metal case that they'll literally install on the wall. And then after that, we'll have a quarterly inventory check on it. So I expect our inventory updates this first year to be pretty low, but because we're doing a big installation on the beginning.
Isn't that like the sheriff's office uses?
I don't know if the sheriff's office uses it. I know the road department uses it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And I've also included in that estimate vehicle kits. These are quite a bit smaller, and we would stock the inventory from the large one that goes in the HHW building if needed to update inventory between visits from the service. But the purpose of that is that we have people out for rural recycling drives. We have the grapple truck out picking up stuff that's illegally dumped on the county roadsides, and so it would just make sure that we have adequate first aid materials with those drivers while they're out.
Any questions for Michelle?
Okay.
Then do I have a motion for, oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Lisa Ecke. Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd. Tom Lindstrom. Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Essery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis.
You finished your first one.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Good evening.
The next thing we have on the agenda is planning. Ms. Ritchie? You're recognized.
Good evening. They're passing out an additional information in regard to the position request that myself and the road department are making jointly. And you don't need to read the whole thing right now, but just to have details to answer any questions that you might have. In regard to my budget in general, I did send in a justification letter. It is on page 5-166. In it, I just said that in general, I'm trying to keep my budget pretty much the same in regard to operations. I am asking for a $3,400 increase in operations. Majority of that is because I feel like I need additional money in my engineering budget. The county has a contract engineer that we use that helps us with plan review and development. And as the economy's picked up, we have more projects which requires basically more review. We are reimbursed for some of that through our ordinance. We pay for the first hour of review for each project submitted, and then we're reimbursed after that. But when it comes back in, like all the fees that I take in, it just goes back into general. And of course, it doesn't happen like we usually bill at the end of the project, just to simplify and keep billing down. But I am asking for that, for the $3,400 increase. My budget has several variables based on the quantity and types of projects that are submitted, and it makes exact budgeting a little bit hard. And we have cut down some costs in the past years. We're trying to go more and more paperless. So we've cut down on both our copying or printing costs and for the packets. If some of you remember, we used to mail you huge packets in the mail. And we don't do that anymore. We try to host everything on the website if possible. And then also we do have lower postage cost for mailing. However, we are still mailing out notifications to surrounding property owners for developments, which does, so we can't kind of get rid of that completely at this point. And those costs go up when we have larger projects as well. And then we are asking, the road department and I are asking for a joint position in a GIS mapping position that we would like to both share. We've talked about this amongst our departments and with the county judge and the chief of staff pretty much all this year. As I wrote in the request that I gave you, it mostly as the county and region continues to grow, the workload on our office, which has traditionally done all the mapping. We do all of our own mapping for our office, and then we also have done some mapping for the road department and also for other offices as we are able to, in addition to also public requests. We make all the maps that you generally see at your meetings and hanging here in the courthouse. We try to hold ourselves to a high level, and we feel like at this point, due to the amount of projects, to maintain the customer service that we have and the quality of our mapping, we really need a part-time person. We don't feel like it's enough that we need a full-time person in the planning office. But we did know that there were also some mapping needs that the road department has. And so we felt like it would make a lot of sense to share a person between us if we could and fund them between us. The position was just approved in JSAP last night, and we did get a final number. It's actually a little bit lower than the number that was budgeted, so actually both of our budgets will decrease by $929 in personal services from what's shown. But I've gone through basically our needs. For the planning department, we have increased need for technology integration. We're, like everybody else, we're constantly moving over toward more of a digital realm. Both myself and the road department have invested in the last few years in getting digital applications and databases that help run both of our departments. Both of those are linked to our GIS mapping system. And if you don't know what GIS is, I think the best way to explain it in the simplest terms possible is that you have a map. And if you can imagine each layer or piece of that map that's created is what you see pictorially on the map, and then it also has a database of customizable information behind it. So as far as roads, you can have, the line that shows the road, but then you have a whole spreadsheet of information that you can look up as its number, the miles that are maintained, what its maintenance schedule is, what the right-of-way is, when that right-of-way was obtained, when the last time it was paved, all of these things, and then it's all queryable and all geo-referenced because it's in a mapping system. So it makes it a very powerful tool because you're able to query things not just on kind of text data, but also where they lie in relation to one another. You can use it for routing, scheduling, maintenance. Lots of school systems have a GIS person that does, their bus routing. That gives you an idea. Anyway, it's where the world is going, and all of these layers, we're all able to share them because everything is geo-referenced. You can go grab, something from the Arkansas State Highway Department or the Federal Highway Administration and just drop it in, and it all lines up with your maps, and then you can query that data. So it is a very powerful tool, and I think it's something that we need to utilize more, but we also have to have a person who can dedicate more time to it, because while in the planning office we're all trained in GIS, we're all also busy being planners, and it's hard for us to have the time that we need to spend on that. Let's see. As far as the road department, and Brad, if I miss anything, let me know. We talked about right-of-way mapping, county-maintained road center line mapping. Right now, all of our center lines are created by our 911 office for addressing and for emergency response. I mean, they're the exact same center lines that are uploaded to central EMS and things for response. But what they don't indicate for our purposes, for better planning and for maintenance scheduling, is where county maintenance ends and private roads begin. So that would be a very powerful thing for us to have mapped. Signage inventory, mapping and tracking. We could have an inventory of county signs, which again helps with maintenance and tracking of inventory. Road striping, inventory and tracking. The road department said that would be very powerful for them. It would give them an easy way to schedule striping jobs that have to be done at certain periodically, and probably once you have all that information in a map form, you could maybe group things a little more efficiently, and then also the ease of bidding striping jobs, just because of the data they would be able to turn over to those companies when that's applicable. Mapping of road type, material width, condition, and road maintenance scheduling, and that would be in regard to mowing, grading, chip sealing, asphalt, and patching. Mapping of county assets, such as dirt pits, gravel mines, and quarries, and also the ability to map out our own sites for ADQ, stormwater, and industrial permits that we have to have for those county materials operations. Mapping of county-maintained traffic signals, and then specifics about their maintenance. And mapping of all county-maintained drainage structures. So that would include anything that conveys stormwater. So you'd have open ditches, culverts, storm sewers, curb inlets, detention ponds, boxes, bridges, open ditch, and curb and gutter. And for like the last 8 to 10 years, we've been requiring as-built plans from all the new subdivisions that come in. A lot of those have curb and gutter and storm sewer systems. Those can be dropped in. We just, again, haven't had the personnel to actually do it. So we have all these things in digital format that we just need kind of a person that we can allocate to start mapping all of these things. And that would be very powerful. I mean, we discussed, there's a lot of times when we're meeting with developers and talking about what size of drainage pipes and things need to go in certain places, and we just don't have an inventory of what's out there. And so we actually, we end up physically driving to the site to see what the sizing of the culverts are in that area and things like that. We could save potentially a lot of trips once we get this all mapped out. Mapping of bridge locations and corresponding details, including their weight limits, age, construction details, maintenance and inspections, and again, that could help with prioritizing tracking of maintenance. And then FEMA designation of county roads. Some roads are not eligible for FEMA funds during a disaster. having a map that delineated those road types could be very helpful to quickly reference in a disaster situation. And then also Brad had mentioned in regard to how the funding portion works when FEMA's reimbursing us, or I'm not familiar with that process, but however that works after the disaster, having mapping capability would be a big help in that process too, and I know that takes up a lot of time. Other things that the planning office does is floodplain tracking, and we're about to get new flood models from FEMA that's going to have digital models for some of the zones in the county, which we've never had before. And if we maintain these well, then it can be a model that people build on. So when there is development in the floodplain, we can have that added to basically the model of how the flooding in that area works. And then when the next person wants to build something, we can give them that model. But again, we have to have someone who can help maintain these things, or they're not, we can't use them to their full capability. So that's why we're asking for someone. And yeah, if you have any questions that Brad or I can answer.
JP Ecke?
Thank you, Madam Judge. This is very exciting. I wish it did laundry and cooking and cleaning and everything else, because it sounds like it's just an amazing tool that you'll have at your disposal for the planning department and for the roads department and for other departments as well. What interests me for the roads departments was the signage inventory, because I know that there was some concerns about outdated signage posted wrong or whatever, and this is going to help correct that. And so I'm very excited about that. And in my opinion, it's going to just make Washington County and what you do, Ms. Ritchie, and what the others do at the roads department even better than what you already are. So, Madam Judge, I move to pass this budget request, or this budget. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. I think we do have a little bit of discussion. J.P. Cochran?
Yes, I think we need to amend it to reduce the $929 for JSAP. And I have a question for our attorney. Don't we have something going on in our budget controls or another ordinance that says we're not sharing employees, and wouldn't we have to address that in a separate ordinance to be able to do this?
I think so.
Okay.
But I don't know that it's in budget control. You haven't passed this year's budget controls.
True. Would you look into that for me, and if necessary, draft the appropriate ordinance for us, please?
And so I understand your intent.
Okay, we're going to do a full-time employee. It's going to be half-time in Juliet's department, half-time in Brad's department, and we have, in some other wording, said we're not crossing budgets. So.
Well, currently we do split employees. But what our budget controls states is that we do not have departments purchasing supplies and other costs for other departments.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Never mind. But I do believe that we need to include the $929 reduction for the department total.
Did you make that in the form of a motion?
Yes, hopefully a friendly amendment.
Now I'm confused. Okay, catch me up here.
Juliet Ritchie said that they just got approval on the JSAP amount, and it reduced the budget by $929.
Yes. Oh, I see what you're doing.
Okay. I didn't hear the JSAP approval.
Okay, so what we're doing is you're making a motion to adopt her budget with the exception of the 920, okay. Okay, to
I
have a
accept
motion
that
and a second.
as a friendly amendment.
Okay, J.P. Harbison?
I don't have a comment. I was
Okay.
going to make the motion.
Okay, anyone else? J.P. Usry?
Thank you. I just have a question. You said on the engineering and architectural charges, there'll be more, but you said that money comes back, that goes into the general. So is this really, what's the bottom line effect?
Well, I don't know. I mean, how much we get back in fees every year varies. I mean, I'll tell you, it's usually around $18,000 that I take in fees every year. I mean, I ask the treasurer to give me a tally at the end of the year. But, I mean, that's something that goes into the general fund every year. So, I mean, I don't know how to answer the question really.
But as this number goes up, theoretically, what you get back should go up.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Carly, call the roll. Does everybody want to know exactly what they're voting on? We're voting on Juliet's budget with the exception of $920 reduced because of the JSEP. Okay. Carly?
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison. Yes. Sharon Lloyd. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis.
Now that you guys have voted,
Thank you.
I'm going to just have to brag on this office. They have come so far. They have done so great. And this young lady here is so precise and so persnickety about what she does. She does everything very, very thorough and very rigid. So I just kind of have to give her let her know what a good job she's done. Okay, the next thing we have is the interesting one, Road Department. Brad and Charles, you're up. George, why don't you pull a chair up? Guys, you're recognized.
What I just passed out to you guys is our projects that we have
Turn
planned
the
for
mic
next year.
so you can just talk into that, Charles. Thank you very much.
What we just handed out is our project list of what we're planning on doing for next year for our road projects. This is going to outline what our new construction is going to be for next year. And as you'll notice, it's going to show general road maintenance on 5 of them, or 4 of them, excuse me. And what that means is we're going to take a dirt county road and bring it up to what it's supposed to be. Get the drainage right, get the road up. It's going to continue to be a dirt county road, but it's going to be improved. Campbell Loop Road was already in the plan. That's just short of a mile. We're showing a mile, but it's actually 9/10. That road is actually going to be redone, and at the end will be chip seal, and that'll complete that Campbell Loop section. On our state aid projects, Campbell Loop Road is proven to be an issue this year due to the quarry opening the state projects, and the road conditions went down considerably. So we're looking at putting our state aid monies into that road to bring it up to condition. So we got a lot of heavy truck traffic. We've got a lot of residents out there having issues maintaining and traveling the road safely. On our bridge projects, we're planning on rebuilding the Orr Bridge and the Bering Creek Bridge on County Road 15, which is Little Road. That's gonna be part of the budget increase that you're seeing actually financially in our budget is we're trying to budget for the replacement of both of those bridges. On the next page, you're gonna notice our reseal, chip seal list. This is our general maintenance chip seal. We attempt to do 60 miles a year. We generally do a good job. Unfortunately, this year our chipper has had many issues. We've sent it out for repairs. It comes back, it's still not repaired. We bring people in to work on it. They still can't seem to figure out what's the matter with it. We get it running for a couple days and then it's down again.
But for the most part, there's the overlook of our refill and chip without having to go through every one of them. You can kind of just glance over them and see the 60 miles. Any questions on that?
J.B. Madison?
The Ora Bridge and the Barron Creek Bridge, since I know a little bit about bridges, are they like the expansion bridges, or are they more like the box culverts?
There's expansion
Yeah,
bridge.
they're expansion bridges, both of them.
And
Okay.
our ideal behind that is to possibly contract out the Ore Bridge and do the Barron Creek Bridge ourselves.
Okay, because I was wondering if the bridge crew could really do two expansion
Well-
bridges in a year.
Well, exactly. That's the reason we're planning, the Ore Bridge is planned to be contracted out. We plan on putting it out to bid, let the contractors build it. The Barron Creek Bridge is on Little Road, which is actually a dirt road. And our bridge crew will actually build that bridge.
But it's still an expansion, like still a.
Yes, it
Okay.
is. It's a expansion bridge.
Okay. And then, how did you determine the priority for the reseal chip seal list?
We actually have a program that's in effect now. Every 7 years, these things come up, and it's part of a 7-year maintenance program. We've actually invested in the First Step program, where they actually went out and inventoried all of our chip seal pavement roads and gave us a condition. And if I can get the computer work here in a minute, I can show you what that means. But essentially what it means is it gives priority of what road is in critical condition, which roads are in, need of repair, and which roads are in great condition that maybe we can push a little longer than 7 years.
Okay.
So basically, it kind of goes along with the GIS personnel. It's gonna help us get a better understanding, where you guys have a better understanding where the money's being spent, because we're actually gonna be able to put it on paper, and you can actually ask us or come down or whatever, and we'll have maps that will actually show you the roads that are in need. There's gonna be a video camera on a car, and he actually drives down every county road that is paved in Washington County, and we can help decide which roads are in more need than other roads. Because if you would actually have to go out and drive all 990 miles, or I don't know the exact number of the paved roads off the top of my head right now, but it takes a long time. And so to be able to have this information and then put it into play with the GIS, along with the plan that we have now, I think it's going to make a lot better sense to where our money is being spent.
And I'm going backwards now, but one more question on Ora Bridge. If we plan to contract that one out, have we done any cost estimations to know how much those bids might be?
We're in the process of it. It's going to be really close to the same length as our Stonewall Bridge. So we kind of have a general idea, but we've got our engineer again, and he's doing a cost analysis, if you will, and doing some permits and figuring out how much exactly it's going to be. But we're pretty positive we're pretty close.
Okay, thanks.
J.P. Maxwell.
Thank you, Madam Judge. A couple of things. One is, this is very helpful. I think I've had a lot of questions from constituents. I think those of us with a lot of rural roads get a lot of these, but being able to help them understand what we're working on, how much of it we're doing, what we're going to do to it, I think those set expectations that are very, very helpful for citizens, and I appreciate you doing this. One thing that I am kind of curious about, can you give me an estimate on what it cost for this general road maintenance per mile, roughly, and what the re-chip and seal projects cost roughly per mile, if you have those numbers here tonight?
Each one of the general maintenance ones is going to vary, so I don't have that number with me. It depends on the width of the road, how much right-of-way we have, how much fill is going to be needed in there, how long it's been without any
general maintenance done to it other than just grading. As far as your chip seal goes, I think it's around,
We had a paper.
I think it's around 20,
And I know it's hard to be ready for every question, so if we need to do this at another time, that's
I'm
fine
pretty
as well,
sure we
but
had a. Didn't bring it.
I'm sorry, I don't have that.
you can get it to us later if you don't mind. Anyway, that'll just help.
We do have those numbers, and there's a formula for how much oil per mile. Unfortunately, we didn't bring the paperwork with us.
I apologize for that.
Actually, yeah, it's right here. Let's see if we can find one that's close to a mile. Okay, we got one here from last year that's just short of a mile of chip seal. Cost right at $9,843.96 to do 9/10.
And that's a variation from your oil prices every year.
Yeah, the oil prices go up and down, but
And that's
based
to
on what we
chip and seal?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's for resurfacing existing chip and seal. With our new chip and seal, you'll put a layer down and then come back and put another layer on top of that, so that cost is going to be double.
Thanks.
Are you finished, Mr. J.P. Maxwell? Oh, okay.
Another big expense in our budget this year is we have a great need to upgrade some equipment. I mean, we've got several pieces of equipment that are 40 years old. We've been trying to keep them going, and I feel like we've done a great job doing that. But at some point, you've got to call, is the maintenance and repair on this and the downtime on this piece of machinery, is it worth trying to keep it in service? So that's the reason we're asking for the extra money for machinery. One major cost is going to be that the chip machine. We're looking to upgrade that. We're needing something that's more reliable, that's not going to be broke down on us. With chip seal, you have a season that's roughly 4.5 months that you have to do 60 miles of road. So you've got to concentrate a great deal of effort to get that done. And if you have a machine down, you can't continue. And if you can average 5-6 miles a day and your machine's down for 3 days, I mean, you're losing a lot of time. And then also with weather, we can't control the weather, so you already have the weather delay on top of your machine delay, and unfortunately, you lose a lot of time and a lot of ground.
Rules are also, in northwest Arkansas, about the 15th of October is the last time that you can put asphalt or the chip and seal because it just won't dry. We had some roads last year that were done later in the season, and these gentlemen have had to go back and resurface all of them because it cracked up so bad because it was the ground. It just, like you said, you can't control the weather. You never know if it's going to get cold or what. So the next one on the list, hang on, no. Did I have you on the list? Okay. J.P. Ecke.
I think you've already answered because I was going to ask you about your chip sealer machine. So it's, when you were talking about it, I didn't know what the age of that particular machine is or equipment.
I believe it's a 1990. Do you have it?
1997.
It's a 1997 machine. We've had it in service for close
How
to.
long? How long or do we have equipment like this under warranty? Is it just a year, 3 years? Is there any warranty?
If you purchase it new, most of the time you're talking 3 or 4 years that you'll be under full service warranty. Unless you buy an extended warranty, and then generally your extended warranty only covers specific powertrain items.
Yeah.
This machine is way beyond any kind of warranty.
It is, because I was going to say, why don't we contact the manufacturer and ask them, hey, this machine doesn't work, and people repair it, and it won't.
Yeah, well,
So
and we
what's the matter?
We
Is
actually
this a
have done
lemon?
that. We've employed Van Keppel 2 or 3 times to work on this machine, and they're the ones that produce the machine. And it's a ghost problem. They can't seem to figure out what's the matter with it.
Well, if it was a lemon, we could slap a lemon law on it. I
believe
know.
I think they'd have a pretty good argument with it being
I know.
such an old machine. But
Overused
it
and
has
hung
been
out
a
to
great
dry.
machine up until this last year. We haven't had hardly any trouble with that machine.
The second question is, if we were to replace that, what are you looking for? Just one, or?
Yes, it's a relatively expensive machine, and we're talking somewhere in the range of $300,000 to replace that machine.
And you expect the longevity of a machine like that to be what?
I would hope close to the one we had now.
Okay.
15 years.
20, 25. Well, you just never know. I mean, if there wasn't a ghost problem, we could fix this one and it still
Certainly.
go not efficiently as a new one would go, but it would still run.
Well, it sounds like to me, you did contact the manufacturer, try to get
Yes.
something done on it. So, okay, thank you, Madam Judge.
J.P. Dennis.
Thank you. They answered a lot of my questions,
Okay.
but I will take advantage and ask this
Okay.
one. I should come spend time with you and let you explain it to me personally, maybe, but I just like to understand the difference in paving and chip and seal. I know it's got to be a cost factor.
It's
but
huge.
it seems to me like paving lasts longer than chip and seal. So is there any cost accounting that anybody has done that says if you pave versus chip and seal?
The amount of, it's gonna double
More than double.
on your asphalt pricing. So.
On a half mile of road, I don't mean to cut you off, but on a half mile of road, you're talking almost $50,000 to put asphalt down. We're on a half mile of road, even on new construction, you're talking 18 to 20,000 on chip seal.
And then
Know what you're gonna put
but the difference, though, you said you had general maintenance where you have to come back and chip and seal.
Every 7
How
years.
soon do you have to come back and repave then?
Depending on the traffic on it as well.
Yeah.
It's
And
gonna
the
hold
weather.
up a little longer. Excuse me, but I don't believe there's gonna be that much of a difference to where you would do asphalt.
Okay.
Otherwise, there would,
7 years, yes.
otherwise more counties would be doing it.
I'll accept that. Thank you.
And just to go back to some of the other equipment that we aren't asking for this year, to give you a kind of a rundown, we've put all of our equipment together. So you're gonna have trailers and dozers and dump trucks and backhoes and anything that we have at the road department. We kind of made a list of, just so you'll have a general idea of how old things are. So one of the reasons that we would need a little extra money is we have 14 of these pieces of equipment that's over 40 years old. We have or 48 years old, I'm sorry. We have 9 that's over 40. So there's 16 vehicles that's between 48 and 40 years old. We have 26 that's between 27 and 37 years old. We have 41 that's between 20 and 26 years old. And we have 41 that's between 13 and 19 years old. Then we have 41 that's between 13 and 8 years old. And we only have, 41 between 8 and 3. And 7 that's within 3 years old. So a lot of our pieces of equipment are fairly old. Just so you'll have a general idea why we're needing some of these new equipment.
I told them we should sell them for antiques.
Yeah.
He said, I've got a couple more. Okay, did one of the Madisons have their hand up? Okay, so, okay, Jake.
Yes, ma'am. Just kind of get an idea
Hang on
here.
just a minute, Butch. I'm sorry, I got out of line here. First,
Okay.
Madison.
I think I got confused. Thank you, Madam Judge.
So did I.
I understood you to say the machinery that you're looking at replacing is one item at about $350,000.
300,000, yes, ma'am.
That's just one piece that we're looking at replacing, yes.
And it sounds like it's such a problem. It needs to be, but why is this a $650,000 item?
Because
then?
we're also looking to purchase a bridge inspection truck And what we're talking about in a bridge inspection truck is essentially it's a truck that our bridge crew would be able to utilize to actually be above the water, up actually on the road, and do their inspection under the bridge, whether that be maintenance, whether it be painting, anything like that, without having to physically be in the stream or the river.
Would that have caught the problems with bridge construction we recently experienced being done improperly, or is that
On new construction, what are you referring to?
stone wall and?
No, ma'am.
No.
So it's not, I mean, I'm just trying to understand what the truck does.
No, this vehicle would be for the purpose of maintaining our existing bridges. We have
Okay. Seeing
somewhere
what the
around
maintenance
20
needs
to
are,
30
looking for
bridges.
rust or loose bolts. or-
Exactly, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And it would keep us from having to get in the streams and the rivers and things like that, trying to avoid the
Yeah,
the
probably
ADQ
DEQ doesn't like
problems.
that too much.
Yes, ma'am. Corps of Engineers also.
Yeah. The $90,000 for vehicles, what is that?
That's 4 pickups.
Are they all double cab?
Yes,
But
ma'am.
There'll be crew vehicles, vehicles that will be replacing old vehicles. As a matter of fact, a couple of them aren't even in operation now. They're parked in the yard, and
Are any of these going to be going home with individuals at night?
Possibly.
Possibly, yes, ma'am.
We are still restricting them to staying in the county, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Except, with the exception of one. We do have one vehicle that goes outside the county, but it's barely
Just a hair.
outside the county. And also, the individual is a mechanic, and he has, somewhere around $80,000 to $100,000 worth of his own personal tools on that vehicle that he needs to be able to have access to.
He's supplying his own tools at that
Yes, ma'am.
valuation for county work?
Every one of our mechanics
Yes,
supply
ma'am.
their own material,
Our-
their tools.
Does our insurance cover that?
I would say so, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
That person might like to know.
He might.
Yeah, they carry a lot of value of their own equipment, and they carry it on that truck and actually in our shop also. And so, I mean, we couldn't.
In the numbers here for both machinery and vehicles, have you included, to borrow from what the judge said, have you included a salvage value or a trade-in value for any of these?
Oh, yeah.
Or does that just evaporate? We just park it and let it rust?
No, well, these vehicles that we're wanting to replace would be either salvaged or traded in. Unfortunately, the vehicles that we're looking to replace, these companies don't even want to take them in on trade.
So they would be salvaged.
I think the local metal recycler will give you something for them.
They're physically
for metal.
obsolete. They can't get parts for them. They can't sell them, so.
Well, do they have a value for metal recycling?
I'm sure they do, yes, ma'am.
And
I
what
think
is
you
that?
can get, I think you can get $300 for a vehicle right now. I believe that's what it is,
For a truck?
for any vehicle.
They have to be
Including this
auctioned, too.
But I'm just trying to figure out whether those salvage trade-in values are reflected in the budget.
No, ma'am. And that's on 4 vehicles.
The 90,000.
Yes.
Okay, this question is off the subject a bit, but currently, are there any women employed at the road department outside of the office?
Yes, ma'am. We just hired one this week.
What does she do?
She's an HEO. She will be on the, where were we going to put her? On
We're-
the sign crew.
We're looking to put her in the sign crew as it stands. She doesn't have a CDL. She's informed us that she can get it within the time frame.
So she's not driving equipment?
Not
She
at
is.
this, not, well, actually, she's not physically on the payroll yet. They're going through their physicals and drug screens right now.
Okay. Well, that's a baby step in the right direction.
We're
Thank you.
trying.
Thank you, Judge.
Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. I want to talk about the bright spot in your budget. Line 4007, $50,000 for a $2 million bridge. Good job.
407.
The
That's-
county matching. Oh,
Right.
yes, sir.
Yeah, that's for the West Fork Bridge. We put down 50,000 and the
You had
state
me
pays
lost
the
there
rest.
for a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, that is a great deal. Thank you, Judge, for your work in getting that done. State's paying for most of that bridge. I know the folks down in West Fork are gonna love it when that thing gets completed. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
J.P. Pond.
I want to compliment you on the decision to replace that chip and seal machine. Is that what you call a lay-down machine?
Yeah, it actually distributes the chips onto the oil.
Okay, and you've just, this year's the first year you've had a lot of problem with the old machine?
Yes, sir.
And, okay, and I'm kind of trying to get a grasp of this, and you mentioned hours lost when the machine breaks down. And probably I myself and the people living in the county, excuse me, we're thinking about the number of miles of pavement we lost. But to get back to the hours lost, usually about how many people are involved in the chip and seal process? How big a crew is that in a day? You got your gravel haulers and your operators.
15, somewhere around 15.
About
By the time you count for your truck drivers, your ground crew, flagging, your guys straightening up the chips as they in the joints, and the operators.
So that's not a real big deal when the machine's working right, but have you already got what do you do with all those guys when that machine breaks down?
They're standing there until we can get it fixed or find something else for them to do, but it's hard to find something else for them to do.
Because you really don't know, well, maybe we'll get it fixed in 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're standing there waiting, but then maybe it's 10 hours. Because you don't know how long it's going to take to fix it.
Yes, sir.
And that's the real picture of the hours that are lost. Not just miles of road, but hours that are lost.
Yeah. And
so,
typically, if we have a major breakdown like that, we try to get to a stopping point and move those guys to putting in a culvert at the end of the day or clean a ditch out or something.
Not making a complaint about it. I'm just saying when that becomes part of the weekly routine, after a while we got to have something for these guys to do because we don't know how. So the amount of money for that new machine, when you look at it compared to the number of man hours that you lost while it was broke down, it's not a lot of money to go ahead and replace the machine. Is the point I was making, and I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm looking at the number of miles that you lost, but the tax dollars, the man hours, the whole thing. There's a lot of time invested in your plan to pave so many miles of road in a day, and I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much, and I'm just all for doing what we can do to maintain what we've had, and bring that quality of road to some of the other folks in the county. Thank you.
Thank you.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I know we're not talking about the half-cent sales tax, but I can't help but look at the capital expenditures that are in that, and sort of, it's quite a bit of capital to be spending in 1 year, because you've got almost $800,000 in the general budget, and then you've got another almost $500,000 in the half-cent sales tax. So can you give me an idea of what that equipment is?
It's an arm truck. That was the arm truck and the other one. So the truck that Charles was speaking about before is actually out of this budget, which is the $200,000. The truck, there's two different trucks for the bridge crew. One is for hauling equipment and materials. That was on the other budget. This arm truck is actually the one that's on the half-cent sales tax budget. And we're from what we've gathered and the information we've pulled up, it's going to cost us right at $200,000 for this arm truck. The other piece of equipment is vehicles requested, which is going to fall under dump trucks again. And if you like, I think we have some pictures that we can pull up that'll show you some of the things our guys are having to work with. Of course, we have better looking dump trucks than this, but we do have quite a few dump trucks that are in pretty poor shape. So that's going to be replacing those. And as far as getting money out of these, we've had people come and look at them. They don't want them. And as far as what money we could get for salvage for them, I have no idea. I apologize for not checking into that, but I don't know.
Well-
I can find out, but I don't know right now.
Well, I'm really glad to have the project list this year. I think some of us maybe would like to see in future years. I realize you haven't been used to budgeting on that basis, but it'd be nice to see project-based budgeting rather than this sort of, because we don't know how much any of those things cost. We see a great list of projects, but we can't really compare that to the budget. But here's my overall concern. Your general budget is increasing $1 million from last year, and I realize some of that is your salaries that we've already increased. And then your half-cent sales tax budget is increasing $600,000. So that's a $1.6 million increase in your budget. And I'm really worried based on sort of what I hear about the way things have gone this year, that that's too ambitious. And we've got to figure out a way to pay for county raises that we've already passed. And there's not money to do an additional 1.6 on top of what you got last year. Now, I did talk to Bobby Hill to understand a little bit, because your half-cent sales tax, and I say this although I know we're not really talking about that one for the benefit of the court, that fund is projected to have $1.4 million in it, and they've budgeted almost close to that. And so I was curious about the holdback, and Mr. Hill says that you don't have to do a holdback from that sales tax, and so they're budgeting all of it. I think in past years we have done a holdback because a projection is just a projection, so we've given ourselves a little bit of cushion. They're opting to budget that this year with really no cushion. With respect to the overall budget, the revenue projections are post-holdback because those are ones that come in. So if you look at the revenue, but right now, without some resolution to this sales tax distribution issue, right now, 40% of the general fund sales tax is going into their fund. And so it's showing projected revenue less the half-cent sales tax of almost $10.5 million. That's because we're putting almost $3 million in it from the sales tax. And then they're asking us to go up $1 million in that fund. And I think we need to pay for raises. There are raises for everybody. And I think that the projects are great. I just think they're too ambitious. And I think it's a lot of equipment all at once. That's $1.3 million worth of equipment in 1 year. And I realize some of it is needed, but I think for the sake of where this county is financially and how much we all wanted to give employees raises, I think this is too much. And I admire the plans, and I'm glad that you're going to contract out a bridge, but there's just too much uncertainty in the ambitiousness of these projects and the increase in the budget for me to be comfortable with where things are right now. I mean, this is the most sizable increase we're looking at any budgets, and we can't pay for it right now with the way things are. I'm not going to argue with you. I get that you all have dump trucks that need replacing, and you have old pickup trucks. I get all that, but we're going to have a new county judge coming in January, and I don't know what that person's going to want to do with the road department and the plan. And I know y'all have been meeting with the candidates and talking about things, and I just feel like there's a lot of uncertainty to be this bold in budgeting for you all right now. So.
Well, that's totally y'all's decision. We understand that, but we're just trying to tell you some of the things that are in dire need at the road department. We're not just holding money to be holding it or trying to spend it where it's not needed. It's definitely needed. So what you do with it it's up to you, and we understand, and we will accept it. But we want you to understand what we are working with. So when we are getting the complaints that we can't take care of the roads, this is some of the reasons, because our stuff's broke down or we're having to work on it. So just so you're aware of it, that we're not trying to drop the ball or push anything over on anybody.
I get it. Right now I don't know how we're going to pay for such a sizable increase. So I hope everybody realizes where those numbers all come together and thinks hard about it, because I think we might want to maybe revisit this one. I'm not going to move to table it because I think I want other people to have a say in this at this point. But I think we need to give this budget a lot of very serious consideration. before we just pass it on lightly. We've passed on a lot of increases tonight without a lot of scrutiny, and this one's going to be more meaningful to pay for. So thank you, Judge.
J.P. Pond.
At this time, I beg you to understand that I'd like to remind the court and the people in the county that it's been, 3 or 4 years since we were able to do any capital expenditures to replace any equipment, or how many years can we continue to go without replacing worn out equipment? I reminded the people on the court at the time we started this process of just discouraging any kind of purchase of equipment in the road department and the sheriff's department. I believe I said then, and got quoted in the paper, that's just a Band-Aid fix. That can't last forever. Eventually, you're going to have to spend some money on equipment. You don't spend the money on equipment, it's just like the lay-down machine. You've got a crew out there wanting to chip and seal a stretch of road. The machine breaks down, and you got a crew that you're paying by the hour, not knowing how long it's going to take to repair that machine. You're paying them anyway. You're gonna spend $100 to save $1 because you're not providing adequate equipment for your employees to do the job they've been hired to do. And we created a good part of this crunch by reducing the millage by 0.5 of a mil. Thank you for being very patient to listen to me again.
J.P. Harbison.
Thank you for this budget. This is an aggressive road budget. We have the money to do it. We need to do it. Yes, we need to give employees raises. We need to restore some of the millage. We cut it. Since I've been on the court, it's been cut 0.7 of a mil. So this is good. Everybody wanted a plan. Here it is. And yes, it is an aggressive road plan, but it's needed. In fact, there's more things that could be added on here than what's on here. So, yes, we need to find money for the raises, but it does not need to come out of the road department. That is, the cities are getting their money. This is the road department's money. And we need to keep it in the road department. We need to look at somehow else to pay for the raises. Thank you.
J.P. Harbison was my last person, so do I have?
So I'm going to make a motion that we pass the road budget.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Just to clarify, it is just the first budget, not both. Okay.
Yeah, we've still got to go into the 0.5 cent, so the other. So, any other discussion? Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Lisa Eki.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd. Tom Lundstrom.
No.
Eva Madison. No. Sue Madison. No. Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
No.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
It passes. So, now the next thing we have got is the road 0.5 cent sales tax. Charles, I've got you on the agenda for that one.
Okay. On the 0.5 cent sales tax, we were looking at his projections, and we were also looking at the bridges that we were going to rebuild and replace. We put the Orr Bridge in our main budget. We're budgeting for the Bering Creek Bridge on Little Road out of our half-cent sales tax.
Would you do me a favor and get the mic a little closer, please?
You know, we understand that the half-cent sales tax comes to the road department, so we're trying to utilize it the best we can. We tried to split it up between the main budget and the half-cent sales tax on the equipment that we're trying to purchase. That bridge inspection truck is a very vital need. I mean, we've been needing something like that for a long time. It's good all the way around. We don't have to wait on ADQ permits. We don't have to contact the Corps to do maintenance on these bridges. We can take that truck out there and do these maintenances. Now, that's not to be said that we won't never have to. I mean, you get bridge footings, wash out, things like that where you physically have to get down there. But we have tons of bridges that are needing maintenance that we can do the maintenance with this truck without having to do all that, not having to disturb the stream or the stream banks or anything like that.
You ready for questions?
Sure.
Okay. First, I've got J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I mean, I support you with the armed truck. Is that what you're calling it?
Yes.
It's the armed truck. And it sounds like an exciting vehicle for you all, and it's going to save time, money, and labor.
Yes.
And it's going to be good for the environment. But I do have to be responsible for the budget, and I know you all understand that. Is there any way we can do a 10% reduction of what this is and be able to not handcuff you, because that's the last thing I want to do is handcuff y'all. And you're to be commended. I think this is the first time that the roads department under y'all's leadership is doing what we've asked, and you heard it once and off you go. To say you're over aggressive about this, I'm not going to judge that, because you know what you need to do and what you want to do for your department. But for us, we're saying, can you cut back any? So what I would like for you to do is see if you can. I want you to get that armed truck. I mean, you said it's $200,000 an armed truck, or 2 trucks for $200,000?
It's one truck.
One truck for $200,000.
The bridge inspection truck, yes, is $200,000. I mean, there's a possibility we could do some shopping around and try to find one that was of less value.
Well, I mean, you know, I want you to get what you need. You know what I'm saying? And
That's what
because sometimes it's not going to. If you settle for what you really don't want, you're never really happy with it, and you end up with, for a long time.
We've tried to make those. We've tried to pick out the things that we need most at
Right.
our department, because
Right.
if you'll look up there at that picture, that's one of the dozers that we use. That is it's an old dozer. I don't know if I have.
Okay,
the
what am I
year on
looking at? I mean, describe to me what an old dozer looks like. I mean, I don't want to be referred to as an old dozer. You know, what are we looking at? I mean, you're sweet, thank you. But
We use that for pushing dirt. That's
Okay,
what it's for.
just for dirt.
Pushing dirt, trees, whatever's in the way. That's a big earth mover.
okay,
The problem with this dozer is it didn't come with a cab that was suitable for any of our mines or anything. So we can't take it anywhere that something could possibly fall on it, because it's not safe.
Tell them
So
how the cab got on there.
we manufactured it.
Yeah, it was built on there several years ago, actually.
well, that shows ingenuity. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not going to laugh at it. You know, if
But we
duct
still
tape
can't
works,
use it.
great. You know,
It's still not in compliance with OSHA as far as being in a rock mine or something like that. We can't
Okay.
use it there.
okay.
There's some of those other pictures. And the ideal is that we tried to go through there. We understand that there's going to have to be cuts somewhere. We did our cuts, and we're going to leave it up to you guys to do y'all's cuts.
No, but
We've
that's
told you
tough.
what we want to do and what we need. I don't know what else we can do other than leave it in your guys' hands. We
That's-
understand what you have to do.
And that's true. And my position on that is, I don't want to run your department. That's why you are head of your department, and the confidence that we have in you to run your department is there. But at the same time, we all have to work together to make sure we have a good budget. And so I can't tell you what you need. You know, you can prioritize for us and say maybe this year and this year, we really need these. This, okay, can we give you next year's list? And this is what we need next year. That way we know where we're coming from. But I'm not going to tell you what to do. Y'all are doing a great job. I wouldn't even try.
We're trying to come up with a system, but that's what I was trying to come across earlier with you, is 16, 26, 12, 46. There's 46 vehicles that are 27 years old, or
Yeah.
pieces of equipment. I mean,
Yeah.
that's pretty old for stuff
And that's
that
not
you
your
use
fault.
every day.
You know, those have been around way before us.
Exactly. So we're trying to build a system where we can possibly rotate equipment out to where it doesn't get to where it's a burden more than something that we can use on a daily basis without having it being in the shop for 2 days and working it one day. We just don't know really where to start. So we're trying to pull some of the things out that we need and go from there.
That's great.
So that's.
Well, give us that equipment list that you have as far as the age on each equipment, so that way we can see and then prioritize, this is what we want here, here, and here. And maybe, you know, showing us how much they cost, so that way we can see it and understand the needs of the road department a little bit better. Thank you, Madam Judge.
I've got Harbison, Cochran, Eva Madison, Lundstrom, and Sue Madison. So next one on the list is Harbison.
Okay, this is the half-cent sales tax budget. All of this money has to be spent in the road department. It can't be moving anyplace else. We have 46 vehicles that are over 26 years old. We have the money to replace them with both budgets, and that's what we need to do. I'm going to move that we pass the 1/2 cent sales tax budget as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, then we're going to continue with the, okay. Is that all for you, J.P. Harbison?
Yes.
Okay, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. Haven't heard any mention of graders. I believe we're paying off our graders this year.
Yes, sir. We've made our last payment.
Made our last payment this year. How are they holding up? I know they're 5 years old now. There's a lot of wear and tear on graders, I know that, because they really work hard.
They're starting to be in shock a lot. That's something we're not including in the budget. You know, we started
Right.
this 5-year plan, was it, Doc? It was in
Right.
2005, 2010.
Right.
We should be there again. Have not included that
Okay.
in the budget yet. That's
Well,
something that,
right. When we did it last time, the judge was instrumental in getting a very low interest rate. Interest rates are pretty low right now, and we were able to spread the cost over, which really reduces the budget. Have you guys considered doing something like that? Because it is the only asset that the county can mortgage, if you will, put a payment on without using current funds. Has that been something you guys have looked at, or did you think about it?
That's something that
we've been looking at it off and on, and we just started looking at it again.
Okay, because that would reduce your overall budget, but get the equipment, get many more, well, actually, you could probably get more pieces of equipment now in the current year to get some of this aged equipment out of your hair, because when it's broke down, we're wasting manpower. We're spending our mechanic time on something that could, instead of repairs, could be general maintenance, which always has to be done on equipment. And I look at that and I know that it doesn't have to necessarily be budgeted that way, but or does it? I guess that's the question for.
Well, it's going to cost
you.
extra money.
Well, but
We're looking at possibly leasing instead of buying.
okay.
I remember back when Donnie and Sean, we debated that subject, whether or not we were better off leasing rather than buying, because they stay under warranty when you're leasing and you pay a lot less. And we actually have enough equity in our current grader, I think to prepay a 3-year lease.
Okay.
So, we finally decided that this needed to be a decision for the new county judge.
Okay.
But we're still trying to get some figures together, so whoever wins that race can make a decision about what they want and come to you with that request.
Okay, well, that makes sense with the change. I understand that the grader company offered us extended warranty at no charge to us here recently as well.
We had an extended warranty on the drivetrain, right?
Okay.
Drivetrain and hydraulic
So
systems.
you guys were instrumental in pulling that rabbit out of the hat, which is great because, anything goes wrong, it's not out of pocket to us, it does that. So I'm sure they're looking at you to buy again from them, so that may have been why they did it, I don't know. Well, I support you in what you guys are doing because the drought on your capital has been a long time before, since you've been able to have any significant money to do. So I'll support you on your budget here. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Eva Madison.
Thanks, Judge. If we wanted them to cut their budget, this is not the one to cut because this one has it's earmarked. The citizens, when they implemented it, dedicated it for road and construction and transportation purposes. But because my friend Rex Bailey could not be here tonight, and I assured him that I would make sure that the transit money was protected, is that in this budget? Is that the $123,000 for the dues and membership? Ms. Beeks is saying yes, so.
I believe it is.
She knows. Where
Okay.
is it, Karen? What line?
It's dues and memberships. It's to fund the rural route in Washington County on ORT.
No.
Dues and memberships?
I heard a no over here.
I was talking to
Okay.
the judge about had you passed it in another.
Okay. Well, and just to clarify, like the
I
road.
don't know that that's it. I'm just saying you haven't passed it before tonight.
Yeah, well, it's in this budget, because when the, for a little history, it was the same year that we voted to put on the ballot the dedicated sales tax for transit that failed. It was that fall that the highway department led the way to put this half-cent sales tax, and they had a broad enough purpose in it that it could be used for transportation too. So it was sort of like, wait until pass that one in the fall and don't pass this one in the spring. And so we felt like, based on that and some assurances from the Northwest Council, that we would give a small portion of this to that purpose. But this is a little broader purpose than the road millage itself. So, okay, thank you.
So it is there.
Yeah, thanks. But if, with all due respect to JP Ecke, if she wanted some budget cutting, it should have been on the last one, not this one.
All right, we're going to recognize Mr. Lundstrom. Judge put
And
me
all
back.
those people said amen.
Okay, Tom.
Thank you. I'm sure you guys probably do some of this. And I really want you to have what you need to get your job done. There's no doubt about that. But I wonder if you do some of what Judge Hutton used to do, like that big rock crusher you've got, he bought for $10,000.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of stuff in state and federal inventories that can be bought very cheaply. I've got a friend up in Johnson that buys pickup trucks from both state and federal, and they'll have 15,000, 20,000 miles on them, and he'll buy them for $2,000 or $3,000. They just want to get them out of their
Well,
inventory.
tell him to call me,
Okay,
really.
I will. You probably know him. He was with Sheriff's Department for 22 years. But anyway, are you doing some of that?
Yes.
Looking into those things?
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
the Johnson Police Department just got a couple of those Humvees and so forth that they're using for rescue work, and, because they're real heavy four-wheel drive units, et cetera. So I hope you do some of that. My big concern about this whole budget, guys, is that we've already given a $1.4 million raise. The coroner was in here the other day. He wanted 2 vehicles, $50,000. Then he wanted to increase his part-time pay by $20,000 or $30,000. And on the budget, that sounds like peanuts, but you have 15 departments do that. It adds up. The sheriff is going to ask for 5 new employees, I feel like. So that's going to be a pretty expensive thing, plus his $200,000 worth of equipment. So I'm just not sure we're gonna have enough money to do this budget with, period. And I really appreciate the remark you made, you know, here's what we can do. We know there may need to be some cuts. I voted no tonight because this thing's not done until we vote on the final number anyway. This is preliminary where we argue these little things and try to sort them out. So I would appreciate if you'd take a close look, which you've already done, but like instead of 2 trucks, can you do 1 truck this year and another one next year or something? But boy, we've got an awful lot of really old equipment that really does need to be replaced. There's just no doubt about it. But how are we going to do that? We may need to be asking some other departments to cut back on theirs so we can get you guys caught up. We did that on the raise situation this year. We gave some people raises to catch them up that was above and beyond some others. So there's nothing wrong with doing that type of thing. But we just need to analyze the whole situation and see where we're going to come out. I'm not sure, you know, if this keeps going the way it is, I'm not sure even the millage increase would cover the budget. That's only 1.5 million a year. It's only $500,000 more than you're asking for in your other budget.
Is there a number we're looking for, where we need to get our number to, where y'all would like to see it?
Well, no, because it's going to, in my mind, this is just you and I talking, but it's going to depend on the final number of this budget versus the amount of revenue Mr. Hill says we're going to have coming in. That's where we're going to have to come back and say, well, Sheriff, maybe you can't have 20 cars, you can have 18 or 15. Maybe you guys can't have 2 trucks, you can have 1 truck. You know, and try to divvy it up where it's as fair as possible for everybody. You know, if there's enough votes on here to increase the millage, then that would happen. But you don't get that money overnight either. So anyway, I just kind of wanted you to know where I'm coming from, but I would appreciate it if you check some of this state and federal inventory, because some of it can really be purchased properly. I think that rock crusher is a good example of it. That was well over $100,000 piece of equipment.
Yes, sir.
And I assume it's still working.
It's still in operation today.
Yeah, for 10 grand. So, you know, it's better than your 40-year-old trucks.
Yes, sir.
Not so.
We've put more than 10 grand back into it, though.
Oh,
Well, I don't doubt that, but
It
it's
takes
still
a lot of
cheap.
maintenance.
Yes, sir.
But it is still working, yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Your Honor,
Yes.
May I ask for a point of clarification from the comptroller?
Yes.
I was under the impression, and this would be up to Ashley to confirm that, based on current revenue projections, the raises, all the submitted budgets, and with 40% of the countywide sales tax money going to the road department, that everything is paid for, plus there's an unappropriated reserve. Is that not right?
Yes, everything is included in the budget. The raises, the salary increase, the salary range increases, as well as the new overtime rule that y'all have been notified about. What the email I sent out today that has an updated 2017 budget summary is the current to date of showing the unappropriated reserves for each fund, which is including the road fund.
So in other words, she's saying at the end of the day, we're going to have an unappropriated reserve above all these expenditures.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, what page can we find that on?
It's in your email, but
In the email.
let's, hang on, road didn't change, let's see.
While y'all are looking for that, I want to make a statement. You know, we have surplus property that we're allowed to buy from, and we are licensed, or whatever you want to say, to be able to purchase from those folks. We will try to put calls in to let them know what we need. And then, actually, out of courtesy, they are supposed to call us if they do have something. But by the time we get from Washington County to Pulaski County, all of the good surplus is bought up. What I would like to do is I'd like to have a shopper in Pulaski County to stay on top of that, to go over to see what's available and lock it down for us so that we could buy it. But we can't get there in time. Russell Hill's not in Little Rock all the time, and we have to have somebody there. We would have to have somebody there I guess they're open 5 days a week, are they?
Yes.
And, we need somebody down there to be able to find this equipment. We had a piece of equipment locked in, went down to get it, and there was another county loading up our piece of property that we drove down there to get, and they backed their trailer up, and we just about had a fisticuff. But we got our piece of equipment and brought it home. So we have a hard time doing that because we live 3 hours from Little Rock. If they live down in some of those other counties, they're half an hour. So it's a tough process to try to get the equipment from that. So I appreciate what you're saying, but it's a tough process. Do you want to go shop for us? They get lost.
I wanted to update you.
Scarlett to go with you.
Okay, Ashley, I'm sorry, guys. Thanks for listening to me rant.
If you go to page 3-9, road department hasn't been changed since the last change we made. So that is an updated unappropriated reserves balance projected.
$22 million, yep.
Judge, after that, could we call the question, just vote on it?
Okay, call for the question.
Call for the question.
Okay, now, we have a motion already and a second.
Oh,
We're
we
just
do?
open for discussion, so you're
Okay.
calling for the question, okay?
That's fine.
Judge, that
I
has to be
withdraw.
seconded and
I withdraw. That's fine.
Oh,
There's a
never mind.
motion and a
Okay.
second. I withdraw.
Okay. Yes, please.
Mr. Butler's talking about, I'm not following this because I see projected new revenue of 61 million and a budget requested of 65 million. That's,
Was that it? You said new revenue, 60?
Yeah.
Or available budget?
well, but
Available
available to
budget.
budget includes our reserves. I mean, we're always, if we're gonna spend our
Well, I think
reserves.
that they, that gets thrown in carryover, then they show, old money, then new money, and then they do the holdback, and ladle to, appropriate, and then with all the, budgets that have been submitted, including the raise, everything else that's been done, you still end up with an unappropriated reserve of, is it 7 million, actually?
For the road fund, it's
I want it all. I just want all of it.
currently, as of minus the changes that are done tonight, it's 11,613,159.
Is it
Those
just
for all funds?
Is that just because we're not spending money this year? Because I don't know how you take in 61 million in new revenue and spend 65 and you have more money somehow. I don't.
Well, and right, and that is the thing, is the available to budget is including new revenue and the carryover, which is what we're basing the unappropriated reserves off of.
Well, the general fund unappropriated reserves will have shy of 7 million.
Correct.
Because the 11 million total is not all we can spend. I mean, the road department is not leaving any.
6 million, I think, is 6 point some odd, something million is what you decided you wanted your reserve to be last year, and now it's gonna be, up to 7 million.
Well, Ms. Farber, help me understand this. Is it just because we're not spending what we budgeted this year, and so we're projected to have a greater carryover? Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
The projection of the carryover is Mr. Hill.
Oh. Well, you're the budget lady, so I was just trying to make sure I asked the right person.
He's the revenue man.
You gotta look at whether or not our revenues came in ahead
Over projection, maybe?
Plus, we had our 10% holdback, which is.
Well, yeah, but that's sort of a wash every year, but, because I don't understand how our budget is going up. Because right now, our budget approved for last year was 63, and this year we've got 65. So,
Bobby, you're recognized.
As far as I don't do budgets. The 12.4 million, that's just what I'm thinking we're gonna have in cash in that fund.
is that an increase over last year or something?
No, last year it was 12.6 or something that we had left over in carryover. But you're right, in the new revenue,
until we get requested budgets that are equal to projected new revenue, we're gonna have problems because it's eating into the reserve.
Getting into the reserves, which the reserves as of now, tonight, is how much?
11,600,000,
Is that a projection, or that's what's actual?
that's projection.
Okay.
I mean, you also, the holdbacks will be included in, so you're actually looking at, as far as I'm concerned, at the end of the year, you'd have like 18 million. Because if I have 7 million in general at the end of the year, I'm gonna be concerned. Because right now I have 10 or 11. I hate for it to go under 10, but it has already this past month.
Ms. Farper, what are you showing is in the general fund unappropriated reserves as of today?
I made sure to balance for that question. So what you will be receiving next week, my report, currently unappropriated reserves for general is $6,657,358.
Okay. I don't know how we're spending more money and have more left over. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around it. Okay. And you say you sent out an updated 3.9 today, or Ms. Beeks did?
Yes, I forwarded it to Ms. Beeks, and then she had forwarded on. And if what you're wanting to do is, if you're wanting to base the budgets off of the projected new revenue, then that is something we would need to reroute and let departments know.
Okay, let's end this discussion. Let's get back now to this half-a-cent sales tax that we've got on the agenda. Thank you, Bobby. We're going to be here all night if we don't move on with this. Okay, so now where were we? We had,
There's a motion and a second.
okay, I have a motion and a second, and then I think I've got two to recognize yet. I think I've got Sue Madison, and then I've got Butch Pond, and then we'll go from there. So, J.P. Madison, you're recognized.
Thank you, Judge. My question matches what we've just been through. I wanted to ask if your request matches what the expected revenue from this half-cent is.
Yes.
You do that? Okay. One other concern, since you're going to do some chip and seal and that kind of thing, why are you cutting $300,000 from asphalt? Is it moving down to bridges and steel, or is it just a simple reorganization?
Yeah, but it wasn't in asphalt, was it?
Maybe I'm reading this wrong. Maybe that's parts and repairs. No, it looks like asphalt. 2025?
Where is the?
It is asphalt. 2025 is asphalt.
You haven't spent it.
Now we're talking about half-cent sales tax.
She said 2025, and that's
2025.
asphalt.
You haven't spent it. Maybe that's why you're, but I would think that would be something you would spend.
Not if your chipper doesn't work.
That's true.
2025. But there's 310. We've got 164.
You're looking at the 6-month deal. We've got 164 in it now.
The
Are you looking
approved
at
budget for
2025?
2016 was $300,000. You requested nothing for this next budget. Is it because you still haven't spent it?
This is the half-cent sales tax.
On the half-cent sales tax?
Yeah. The budget we're on.
You know what, Judge? Let me just let them answer that later.
No,
because
I think what we're seeing is we moved on our half-cent sales tax. We've got our asphalt and everything budgeted in our main budget. And our half-cent sales tax, we moved that money into the bridge that we're intending on building.
So it's moved to the other budget.
Yes. Oh, yes.
No, it's in this one.
The money that we intend on using for asphalt for for 2017 will come out of our main budget.
Okay. You are still going to put down asphalt?
Yes.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pond.
I'm gonna pass.
Okay.
Where it's getting
Okay,
late.
so now we've got a discussion has ended. Carla, would you call the roll? And what we're voting on is budget presented as a half-cent sales tax.
Lisa
Speak
Aiken?
loud back there.
Ann Harbison? Yes. Sharon Lloyd, Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison? Yes. Sue Madison? Joe Maxwell?
Yes.
Gary McHenry?
He's
Joe
on his way
Patterson?
now. He's got a long drive.
Joe
Okay.
Patterson?
Next thing we have on the agenda is our.
Wait, Judge.
Oh, okay. Okay. Joe, we're voting on the half-cent sales tax, so, okay.
Butch Pond? Yes. Bill Usry? Daniel Balls? Harvey Bowman? Rick Cochran? Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, didn't mean to jump the gun on you. I'm getting tired.
That's what we did.
Grants Administrator, okay, guys, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Grants Administrator.
Sorry about that last question. You guys stumped me a little bit on it.
Hey, you've asked Essender a lot of questions. I think you did well. Renee, proceed.
Oh, you were scaring me. I thought I was going to lose a quorum. I'm requesting a new vehicle for next year, and I'm also requesting 4,000 something for grant software.
Any questions for Renee?
Madam Judge, I move to pass.
We got a motion to pass this budget. Do I have a second? Okay. Discussion? J.P. Madison?
I thought Grant's got a new vehicle not long ago.
The vehicle that I have is a giant 2009 Chevy Silverado four-door gas hog truck that has about it has 107,000 miles on it right now.
Okay.
I inherited it from my predecessor. I'm asking for a more fuel-efficient, smaller vehicle. I still need all-wheel drive because, at least all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive because some of the places I go. The transmission slipping in the truck, power steering is going out in it. I had to have the oil pump replaced. It was over $1,000. So I'm afraid that it's going to become a money pit and lose its value rapidly if I don't trade it in.
I guess the car looks better than it is because I've seen you in it. So.
Well, it's giant too. Did I mention it's giant?
It is giant. Yes, it is definitely inherited from your predecessor.
Yes.
So, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you. So is the 22.5 including kind of an estimated trade-in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We still have a couple ordinances pending that relate to your other employee, and I'm not quite sure what to deal with it, because if we don't end up doing the interlocal agreements with anybody on the septic systems, I'm not quite sure how you'll utilize the second employee. I know that it was planned to go that way, and then these ordinances have been held back. So can you speak to if they don't go through, is the need still there for the second person, and how would you use it? Would it change the grade? Would their responsibilities be different, or how would that work for you?
Sure. So everybody knows I have hired someone. She's been working in my office for 2 weeks now, and she's doing great. She's learning a lot. Even without interlocal agreements, that will affect two subdivisions, I think, is the only thing that it'll take off the list. We still have other subdivisions within the county that are still, our sewer ordinance is applicable. And in fact, the reason I'm last on the agenda tonight is because I was just at a Goshen City Council meeting discussing the interlocal agreement with Goshen. I don't know whether or not they're going to pass it, but I offered my points and what was valid. But essentially, I still have Sloan Estates, Homestead, Bethel Oaks, Joy Street Cottages, Horse Bend Estates. There's 2 more that I'm not
I think
thinking, so
there's
I'll still have
There's
7.
yeah, okay.
That
And then
will be
you'll
our
utilize that
elements.
for helping do a little more delving into some of the federal grants.
Yeah, yes, and she's learning. She wrote her first GIF grant yesterday
Yay,
for $7,500 for an animal shelter, but it's a start.
covers her first month's pay.
So, I'm utilizing her in other ways and
Okay.
probably going to keep my sewer hat for a little while until she gets more comfortable.
All right, well, thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Judge, I know this is nobody's business, but I had 1,000 people catering today, and I am done. Can we vote and move to adjourn after the vote, if we would please? Would you please do that for me, Mr. Lundstrom? Is it one more
Do we
item?
have a motion on the floor to, we have one, and
Yes,
we have a
and a
second?
second, yes.
Okay, do we know who made the
Call
motion?
the
and
question.
Karen, did you get the motion in the second? Okay, any more discussion? Carly, call a roll, please, honey.
Lisa Ecke. Ann
Yes.
Harbison. Sharon Lloyd. Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison. Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis.
Thank you.
We got one more item. I am going to be out of town October the 13th, so due to my absence, the court will need to choose a presiding officer for the October 13th meetings. Butch got his hand up there, yes.
But I beat him.
You
Nominate,
didn't have your hand up, did you? Hang on just a minute. I'm sorry.
Nominate Rick Cochran.
Okay, he's got his nomination.
Is that okay?
It's
I
a
mean-
nomination, that's my turn.
Okay, discussion?
You can continue, Judge, to this is a nomination process.
Okay, and okay, this is, Tom?
I love this. I'm gonna nominate Eva Madison because if she gets elected, I don't have to listen to her talk on every subject that's brought up. Wait a second.
Okay, we have 2 on the floor, so now we're gonna have to take a vote, and any other nominations? Okay, first nomination, we'll be voting on Mr. Cochran. Let's do a roll call.
Lisa
Well,
Ecke.
Judge,
I'm sorry, wait,
I think,
do I have to do a motion?
no, you've done a motion, but I think because you've got competing things on the floor, you need to raise hands
Okay,
or go ayes and nays.
oh, let's raise hands. Okay,
Oh, I gotta count.
okay, raise your hand, who is voting on Rick Cochran? Ann, are y'all voting?
Rick, raise your hand.
Okay, let me go back.
Okay, then I'm gonna talk a whole lot on Thursday, y'all just watch out.
Okay, so now we've got the hands being raised for Rick Cochran. Raise your hand, who is voting for Rick? Okay,
I like your insights. So you're gonna hear a lot of them now.
okay. Thank y'all for doing that for me. I have never missed a meeting, and so I do. Do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I guess.
All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.